Hey guys. This is part 3 of What If Naruto Was a Different Person. Hit like and subscribe if you like this one, and also please check the author in the description. Let's start. Chapter 9. Meanwhile in the Leaf, Kakashi POV. As he flew through a tree and narrowly avoided doing the same with another one by using a well-timed wind jutsu, Kakashi had to admit that hadn't been the most well-thought-out plan he'd ever had. Perhaps the earlier blow to the head was to blame. If head-on taijutsu wouldn't work, then it's time he attempted something different. Landing on a tree branch, his keen senses easily detected the sounds of water slowly moving within a river, so he leapt in that direction. After creating a mud clone to deceive the opponent, of course. Such a tactic would have worked perfectly a few years ago. Too bad his cute little genin had turned into a right terror behind his back. Kakashi landed on the surface of the water with barely a ripple. Not too long afterwards, Special Jonin Naruto appeared a few meters from the riverbank, but by then, half the needed hand seals were complete. Feeding his chakra into the jutsu, a dragon materialized from the river and started growing at a rapid rate. At the same time, the second level to his plan showed itself as the mud clone revealed it had circled back around and attacked Naruto from his blind side. It didn't last longer than 2 seconds, but that was all Kakashi needed, as the water dragon had grown large enough to pose a threat, and he went to have it target the blonde. And yet, a distant part of his mind commented on how content Naruto seemed to just stand there. Not at all compliant with the blonde's displayed fighting style so far. That brief moment of forewarning was the only thing that allowed him to use a chakra-reinforced jump and avoid the explosion of water as the dragon flew into the area he had evacuated. Reaching the apex of his jump, he flung several lightning-laced shuriken downwards and multiplied them with a jutsu of the third's creation. The projectiles functioned as a smoke screen as he landed on the opposite side of the river and used an earth jutsu to slip underground. Jiraiya-sama's analysis of the blonde had included primary affinities of wind and water, but he had left out just how far along his pupil was. It took an extraordinary level of control and a not substantial amount of chakra to commandeer another's jutsu like Naruto just did, traits that not many obtained so early in life. Not during these times of relative peace. Despite the current situation he was in, Kakashi felt a sense of pride run through him. Should have expected nothing less from his sensei's son. Navigating his way through the earth, Kakashi looped around and resurfaced in the field they had initially started. He saw no point in turning this into a long, drawn-out affair when the Uzumaki had more chakra and stamina than he did. He'd rather spent that time with his new book. Truly, Jiraiya-sama was a blessing from Kami herself. Giving up already, Kakashi? Of course he'd be there waiting. Pulling two kunai from his pouch, the copy ninja's lone Sharingan gained a dangerous glint. His signed edition of Makeout Paradise, What the Heart Wants, could wait, while he humbled his junior. Your skill as a censor makes me envious, he commented idly as he leaned his back against a tree. His poor, humbled back. Really? I know you have your dog summons for tracking, but I assumed you had some type of sensory technique as well. Naruto replied as he unsealed a bento from his vambrace, something that was quickly becoming as customary to the blonde as the old orange outfit had been. They were certainly more functional than those eyesores. I do, but it isn't my main method. He happily took the proffered stick of Pocky. Thanks. Not bad. Anyways, I'm not a natural sensor, so I can't use it to easily distinguish between clones or track someone using the headhunter jutsu like you can. Shame. I for one can attest to how useful it is. It's like a Byakugan with how I can observe people outside my range of sight. He took a bite out of his snack. To be honest, however, my technique is different from others you might run across. How so? Kakashi took another piece without shame. Maybe he and Naruto should spar more often if he'd get fed like this. Did you create it yourself? Like the Rasengan variant used on the mission to retrieve the Kazekage, in a way. Over the years I was gone, I made a lot of progress in using the power inside me. Naruto started. Kakashi sat up somewhat, not expecting Naruto's tenant to be part of this story. Don't worry, it went well. So long story short, I got a few abilities from that training, and one of them is the ability to sense negative emotions. That's new. A great tool to have, especially when dealing with shinobi, but it could also alienate certain people. Shinobi pride themselves on both keeping a tight rein on their visible emotions and also being able to read others. Those traits helped one survive longer in a treacherous world after all. So it stood to reason that abilities that could negate or enhance those traits were taken note of. Sensing emotions might not be as invasive as Yamanaka mind techniques, but it could certainly prove more alarming if its usage couldn't be detected. Kakashi suddenly became more self-conscious about what he was feeling at the moment. Were they negative enough to be felt? What about moments where he was stuck in the past? Was melancholy a negative emotion? He blinked and pushed those thoughts away. They wouldn't lead to a good place. Through the Ninetales' power, you say? He asked instead. The source of the most malevolent chakra he'd ever felt in his life had an ability to sense negative emotions. Made sense in a twisted way, not what one would assume right. Anyway, I created a method where I could use that ability without having to enter the full chakra shroud it came with. For the price of lesser physical boosts, I can sense emotions like fear, anger, or rage within my range. Interesting. I would assume clones don't feel emotions like a normal person due to being temporary constructs. Am I correct? Yup. I've only sensed anything resembling emotions from shadow clones, and even then, it's a muted thing. Naruto explained. Unlike normal sensory techniques which skilled nin can hide from, my empathy sense is fail-proof for the time being, so as long as your target is feeling the appropriate emotion, they can never hide within your range? Like I said, your skill as a sensor makes me envious, says the guy who knows over 1,000 jutsu. Although, I have yet to see you use 30 different techniques. 1,000 is somewhat of an exaggeration. More of a ploy to build reputation for client purposes. He shrugged lazily. And to be honest, I can't use a number of the jutsu I've copied over the years for one reason or another. As talented as Kakashi was, he wasn't on the level of the professor, as he had yet to master all the basic elemental affinities. This meant certain jutsu couldn't be performed without rigorous training, and others, while he could do them, they weren't comparable to someone who had a trained affinity. While he could reasonably train to meet those requirements, other techniques simply called for too high a chakra expenditure or a special blood limit. I know, just wanted to hear you admit that out loud. The blonde smiled before turning serious. That's not exactly common knowledge, so I'd appreciate you keeping it to yourself for now. No one can counter it if no one knows about it. Your secret is safe with me. Kakashi nodded. Every nin should have a technique or two to give them an edge over opponents. Speaking of secret jutsu, you know, you're not the only one who used the last 2 years to get stronger. I have a new technique myself. Really? Naruto sat up, his blue eyes scanning for something. Did you finally add shape transformation to your Chidori? Ah, no. He answered, some of the wind leaving his sails. A good guess, but his continued failure to succeed at that particular endeavor rankled him. Not that. Something better. And before the blonde could attack his pride again, he uncovered his left eye and applied chakra to it. To be honest, he still wasn't quite comfortable with the sensation as the eye transformed. The Manjikyu? Since when have you had that? Years ago. But I didn't know about it, and thus couldn't activate it until recently. Well, seems he was coming off as a real idiot today. I remember you saying Itachi's advanced eyes really strained his body. With that being an implant, can you actually use it? Naruto asked him with a hard look. Even though I'm not the same person who faced Zabuza and collapsed right afterward, I'll admit this new form does come with high demands. It requires a staggering amount of chakra, and Tsunade-sama warns me the eye could deteriorate with overuse. I've only used it while training, and sparsely at that. One never knows when a technique could be useful, so he'd rather develop it to an adequate level instead of regretting not having it should a danger present itself. A good safety measure. Have you figured out what it does? Seems Itachi had 2 different techniques, so assuming each eye had one, you should have a single ability. What is it? It's a time and space technique from what I've observed. It takes something within my line of sight and warps it away. Kakashi explained. And before you ask, I do not know where they go, and I can't recall them. It's a one-way journey to elsewhere. Limits? I need to have a direct visual on it. Mass is somewhat proportional with chakra cost. Works on all states of matter. And there is a focal point where the warping begins, and once started, I can't move that point until I stop the jutsu. You didn't say anything about what happens if the medium the focal point is on moves. Naruto pointed out. I would assume something moving fast enough to escape my line of sight would be able to get away. Same for teleportation techniques and substituting, I would assume. Sounds like a useful tool for desperate situations then. The last part is because it's chakra intensive and hurts your eye. Naruto finally said after a moment of deliberation. So I won't ask you to demonstrate it for my benefit, but I would like to be present next time you train. Odds of a clone actually surviving the process are likely low. Kakashi pointed out, having guessed what his old student had in mind. It would disperse before seeing anything. If there is anything to see, that is. Remember the chakra shroud I mentioned? Well, I'm pretty sure it should make the clone durable enough. especially if you're careful when casting the jutsu," Naruto argued. The silver-haired Jonin saw no reason to oppose such an experiment. No one would get hurt. The Sharingan was debatable, and he certainly wanted to know where he was sending all those test dummies. If Naruto wanted to help, then he would accept. "Sure. I'll invite you to the next training session." As he said that, he took the final piece of Pocky. "As payment, of course," goes Sakura POV. "It's more than just that," Ino complains as she moves about tidying the flowers on display. "I feel like there's something they're not telling us. Something only those at the top know." From her position leaning against the counter, Sakura rolls her eyes in amusement. "Well, if it's that high up, why make such a big deal out of it? Maybe it doesn't concern us, but that's just it. I've been working with my dad in the analysis department, and he's usually open about things, or at least lets me know what it's about. But lately they've been doing something and won't let the junior analysts be around. Still don't see why you of all people should be involved. Even if your father is in charge of that division." She laughs. "Because there's only one entrance to the branch, and I've seen Naruto walk in with no issue." "Naruto? You sure?" "Yeah." The blonde sends her a smirk over her shoulder. He's not wearing orange anymore, but that doesn't make him any less noticeable. Ignoring her best friend's antics, Sakura focuses on what she just said. What would Naruto be doing in there anyway? He's never showed any aptitude in interrogation. Well, he also didn't used to fight S ranks by himself, so maybe he picked it up while away. The blonde shrugs before casting an eye around the flower shop and nodding to herself. She then moves behind the counter to drop off the work apron and then joins the pinkette at the register. "Have you noticed anything while with Tsunade-sama?" "Not about this, I don't think," Sakura answers. Her sensei had asked her and Shizen to study a cadaver brought in from the Akatsuki mission a couple weeks ago, but that didn't really explain anything. As far as she knew, no prisoners had been taken alive from that mission, so they wouldn't bring a dead body to the analysis team. Plus, Tsunade-sama had sworn them to secrecy about the cadaver due to its composition. DNA from the first. Shame. From the way I see it, they must be investigating something or someone from inside the village. That's the only way it could be kept so quiet. At that comment, realization came to Sakura. From up here, the village might present a unified front, but don't let that fool you. Not every leaf Nin is on our side. It's the rogue aspects within our command structure. Naruto had said that to her. Did that mean Tsunade-sama was in the process of eliminating the traitors within the leaf? Yeah, that could explain it. One or more of them must have been apprehended and was now being interrogated for intel on the rest, perhaps. Maybe they were just being quiet about it so any conspirators wouldn't realize the Hokage was on to them. Hey, I know that look. You know something about this? Ino asked her, pupilless eyes, or just eye with one covered by her hair, drilling into her. What is it, Sakura? I just remembered something Naruto said to me a little after he got back. She responded hesitantly. Would it hurt to tell Ino? Well, I'm all ears here. Her friend prompted, making her sigh. Look, Ino, Naruto told me about something because he felt I should know about it. That it could have something to do with our old team, and therefore involve me. He didn't want me going in blind. She tried to explain to her inquisitive friend without going into too much detail. If you're in some kind of danger. No, I don't think that's the case. In fact, I think this is a good thing if I'm reading it correctly. We should probably just leave it alone. No need to tip off the enemy. Or risk it, if you say so. Ino reluctantly backs off. But are you sure you can't tell me? Sorry. It's probably best if I don't. And besides, Naruto has been tight-lipped about most things regarding his abilities and his plans. If he found out I told you when he warned me in secret, he might never confide in me again. Sakura shrugged helplessly. She would say her old teammate was being overly paranoid, but this conversation was making it clear that there were indeed threats close to home. Ugh. I guess. But it's not like he would have found out from me that you shared. Sure, it's not like you've been trying to get his attention recently. She remarked dryly. No, I haven't. But if we did somehow randomly and purely on coincidence bump into each other, I'm sure we'd have other things to talk about. Ino denied, to which Sakura scoffed. Don't believe you. And he's a lot more perceptive now, so even then, it wouldn't be too surprising if he saw through you. In more ways than one. I've been meaning to ask about that actually. What's up with Naruto these days? Like, he went off with Jiraiya-sama for a couple years and came back a completely different person. There has to be a story behind it all. You know, looking back, I would say the changes started even before the trip. Right after Sasuke left. Sakura felt the familiar pang in her chest as she mentioned the desertion of her crush. To this day, she still had feelings for him. To her credit, Ino noticed, and her tone became softer. I hadn't realized. You think, yeah. That changed him, I think. She made an effort to brush away the uncomfortable atmosphere. He became more distant after he got out of the hospital. Started training more is what Tsunade-sensei tells me. I can't really blame him. If Shika or Chuji had left the village, I don't know what I would do with myself. Probably wouldn't handle it as well as you two did. Ino confessed. Yeah. She blinked. When you factor in the Akatsuki and how they're after him, it's no surprise that he became so focused. It could be the difference between life and death. He's done well so far is all I can say. Ino said in an upbeat manner. It wasn't necessarily faked either. Almost half their number has been eliminated, and even though some people are thinking Jiraiya-sama did it, I think Naruto was also involved in taking out Orochimaru, most likely. An increasing number of people knew about the death of the Sannin, but almost no one knew how it happened, so they attributed it to another Sannin since it made the most sense. Jiraiya-sama was both in the public eye and yet also worked covertly enough that he fit the perfect mold for such a surprise operation. With Naruto's newfound strength, it wasn't improbable that Jiraiya would take his student along when he faced his rogue teammate. Beyond that, the timing of when Naruto started working in the Hokage's office was somewhat fishy. Ino was actually on the right track then. Something was going on and Naruto had a role in it. That's it. Just most likely, what more can I say? You made a good point and I happen to agree with it. She defended. I expected to hear more details, something that no one else would know since you two hang out sometimes. Don't tell me all you do is train. Her tone made it obvious she wouldn't take that for an answer, but Sakura really had nothing else to add. Naruto certainly hadn't fessed up to anything. Are you asking me to lie to you? She wondered. TCH, come on Sakura. You're the only one of us besides Shika who actually knows anything, and he won't share. Sakura turned away from the pouting blonde. Maybe there's a reason for that. Actually, why don't you just ask Naruto himself? Better than asking someone who doesn't have concrete answers. I don't know where he lives. Ino shrugged. You know where to find him when he's not at home. It was common knowledge that Naruto could be found in the Hokage's office during the day, and risk making Tsunade-sama angry? There's only one blonde she has a soft spot for, and we both know it's not me. You won't know until you try, Sakura said sweetly. Perhaps a one-way trip through a wall would get her to calm down. I bet Hinata knows where Naruto lives. Think she'd tell me? Ino asked instead, completely ignoring her and likely plotting something. Hinata? Give the location of her crush's residence to another girl? As if, maybe Ino really does want to be put through a wall? Goes. Anko POV. The kunoichi behind the desk eyed her ninja registration information for a quick second before handing the card back. Giving her a nod, Anko briskly walked by her. Entering the Intelligence Division building was always a tedious process regardless of identity. Perhaps the reigning Hokage was permitted some leeway, but for everyone else, verification was required for every visit. The main hub was where most of the security was focused, but each individual branch had their own lesser measures meant to verify purpose and clearance level. She worked with the torture and interrogation branch, but right now she was making her way down the corridors of the analysis team branch. Her path soon led her to a large circular room where a strange structure was the sole decoration. It was made in two parts, the one in front being a semicircle with a notch and an opening near the flat side, while the second part was a crescent of sorts hugging the round portion of the semicircle. Both were covered in an assortment of seals, but Anko couldn't begin to make head or tails of it. All she knew was that it was used in conjunction with Inoichi's Psyche Invasion Jutsu. It wasn't in use at the moment, but she knew the traitor Danzo had been attached to it within the previous hour, and would be subjected to it again until he had no secrets to disclose. The thought of the disgraced elder brought a frown to her face, so she pushed that away as he wasn't the reason for her trip down here. No, the reason was solely due to one of the two individuals conversing in the room. She didn't know how long their dialogue would last, so she took a few steps back and found a comfortable spot to lean against the wall. A quarter of an hour later and the two separated, with one heading her way to leave while the one she came looking for stayed put. This was her chance. Hello there, Anko-chan. The last male Sannin greeted her as he approached. I suppose you wish to speak to my student and not me? Yes, Jiraiya-sama. As long as I am not interrupting. She bowed. Being polite was not a habit of hers. An open coat was the only thing keeping her mesh-covered breasts decent after all, but sometimes it was called for. Speaking to one such as the Toad Summoner was one of those instances, especially when he looked as serious as he currently did. There was no trace of the perverted persona she had witnessed on previous occasions. Of course not, he's all yours. With a nod, he made his exit, leaving her to make her way over to the blonde. Anko Midarashi, right? Was the first thing he said to her since the Chunin exams all those years ago. He certainly had grown since then. They were around the same height now. Yes. And you're Naruto Uzumaki, the one who finally killed Orochimaru. She responded, looking into his cool blue eyes. She found herself explaining before she even realized it. I was given clearance to work on the Danzo case. Although so, there's a lot to deal with regarding his situation, so I'm sure multiple heads were brought in. What do you think of it so far? She did not hesitate. The village is better off without him. After what happened with her sensei, the one thing she hated above all else was a traitor. A close second was one who abused a position of power and made their underlings suffer. Danzo, the scum, met both of those criteria. When news of Orochimaru's true colors had been publicized, she'd been placed under a lot of negative scrutiny by those who'd never known her. Because she'd been his student, many thought she'd been compromised. That she'd known of and supported his cruelty. They thought the seal on her was a sign of his favor rather than the curse it truly was. If they'd bothered to look deeper, they'd have seen she was just a little girl who was abandoned by someone she trusted and had no one to support her. That Orochimaru had fooled her even worse than he'd fooled the village. Despite being proven innocent and forming bonds with those around her, there were some who still doubted her to this day. Danzo had been one of those people. He hadn't kept his distaste for her a secret, believing her to be a liability. And now the truth was out. Not to everyone, but the select dozen or so with clearance knew about Danzo's treachery and his schemes. He was the liability and security risk that she'd enjoyed being able to work on beside Ibiki. He deserved all that and more. It wouldn't be long until he was executed. She was looking forward to it. I completely agree with you. Only wish he'd been found out earlier. The blonde nodded. But he'll get what's due to him soon, and hopefully his agents can be freed. It shouldn't be too long until they are rehabilitated. A couple months maybe. She actually had no idea, because although psychological programming was something she had experience in, genjutsu that could permanently rewrite someone's personality was new to her. Luckily, that sorry excuse for a human had had the forethought to compel his agents to be loyal to the leaf rather than him personally. No doubt he thought impersonating a village would be more difficult than doing the same for one individual, and thus making it harder for his agents to be led astray. Whatever the reason, it left only the results of their harsh training regime to be altered, after which the leaf would gain a few dozen fiercely loyal nin. Anyways, Uzumaki, the reason why I came to talk to you was to say thank you, she started. Not just because you discovered the traitor, but for finally killing Orochimaru. Mitar. No, please, she didn't want to cut him off. But she also couldn't let him interject here. She needed this. Please let me say this. Get it off my chest. He was my sensei a long time ago, before he was driven out, and even after the fact, his shadow always loomed over me. People looked at me different just for being associated with him, and I won't say the person I am today is a mask, but I know for a fact that their opinions shaped me. Shaped me because of him, and what he represents to everyone. A monster. She took a deep breath to try and calm herself down. This was not going how she had practiced, but at least he was giving her the moment to vent. As a Jinchuriki, he probably understood what she'd gone through better than anyone else ever could. For a long time, my fondest dream was to one day kill him. To stand above his corpse and to know he wouldn't be allowed to haunt me anymore. But in the end, her jaw clenched before slowly loosening as she shook her head. In that forest, he showed me the truth. Little Anko-chan would never be able to kill her sensei. He wouldn't allow it. A hand moved to rub her left shoulder. Just the memory brought up phantom pain. My dreams were stomped on that day. Torn to shreds as I realized I didn't have the power to take down a Sannin. Not on my own. My only hope was for someone else to kill him. That was the only way for me to be free of him, so I prayed for that person. And then you did it. She was staring into his soul at this point. You killed Orochimaru where the third and so many others had failed. I never considered it would be you. I don't think anyone did, but you did it. So if you can take anything from my rambling, then I want it to be this. Thank you, Naruto Uzumaki. Thank you for freeing me from a nightmare. His eyes held hers for a long moment before he nodded. You're welcome, Midarashi. Just like I told Jiraiya, I didn't off the snake with anyone else in mind, but I'm happy to hear my action brought you some peace. Since we're on this topic, were you allowed access to the documents I took from his bases? If you're talking about his notes regarding my curse mark, then yes. I do know about them. Hokage-sama felt that I should know, although the science of it all went above my head. She admitted. All she really got from that discussion was that her sensei was dead and that her seal was a potential method for him to be resurrected. A method she was essentially safeguarding. The irony. Yeah, I just skimmed it all myself, so I don't understand it either. Uzumaki shrugged. It's good that you were told though, was worried I would have to break it to you. Humph, she felt a smirk come over her face. Worried I would break down and do something stupid? She asked jokingly. Although, the scene where she attempted to do a suicide technique to take out her sensei came back to her mind. Perhaps it wasn't merely a joke, mostly the breakdown part. Strangers crying to me isn't something I'm really equipped to handle. His lips twitched in a smile. If she'd been looking for a K, then that was it right there. How about we fix that then? She offered with her own smile. The stranger part. I would like to hear the tale of Orochimaru's last stand, and seeing as how you had the best vantage point, you're the man to ask. A good meal and an even better story. Sounds like the start of a great friendship, don't you think? I suppose you do deserve that story more than anyone. The smile that had been struggling to come out finally made a full appearance. That I do. My treat? She sweetened the deal. Okay. Lead the way. Goes. Jiraiya POV. He faintly chuckled to himself, as he made himself scarce. Even outside his writings, his godson seemed to have the luck of a protagonist. Now if only some of that luck would come his way. Exiting the building, Jiraiya took note of the gloomy evening sky that synced with his current mood quite well. His mind once again turned to the northwest. To the war-torn village of Aim. He'd been a fool to leave them back there. Really, why hadn't he just brought them to the Leaf? They were orphans with no connection to the village besides unpleasant memories, so ultimately, the decision would have fallen to them if he made the offer. Even if he did have a war to continue fighting in, he should have gone back for them afterwards. It would have been the smart thing to do, the humane thing, but as of now, it might be too late. No. He shouldn't entertain that thought. It could very well be that they needed him now more than ever. Conan. Nagato. Yahiko. Innocent children turned into S-category criminals. Orochimaru believed them to be in the upper echelon of the Akatsuki. Leaders even. Jiraiya couldn't begin to imagine just what they'd experienced behind his back to lead to such an outcome. However, the reports of pain having Yahiko's appearance paired with Nagato's eyes did not sit well with him. If one of them died, taking a steadying breath, he forced down all the anger and anxiety. Decisions made under the influence of those emotions would only lead to disaster. It's for the best that Haim and Naruto talked him down into waiting for a good window to infiltrate AIM, as even he had to admit taking on numerous opponents of that caliber would not have been feasible. Alone, that is. With a solid plan and Naruto beside him, he would attempt to do right by his old students. That was later, however. Until then, he had an important package to deliver to the Toads and overdue contacts to see, as it was becoming obvious Danzo would be a tough one to fully crack. He decided to go see Haim before departing. Maybe the protagonist's luck would work in his favor this time. Chapter 10. Calm before the storm. Sasuke POV. It is just him atop the high bluff. Him and the nightmares that drive him. My foolish brother. His fingers run through seals he's long since memorized. The resulting fireball soars up into the heavens and explodes. If you want to kill me, curse me. Hate me. Another set of seals and the clouds take the brunt of multiple balls of fire. Run away, and cling to your pitiful life. One more. A stream of flames escape from his lips, and finally the heavens can take no more. Clouds darken and thunder roars. It's time. These hand seals are likewise engraved in his mind. Chakra flares up around his hand, pointing to the sky. The urge to bring it down and cast the final judgment is great. And then someday, when you have the same eyes as I do, come before me. The hand drops, and the sky is split with a bright flash of lightning. Kirin! Sasuke blinks away the spots left in his vision by the overwhelming might of nature. Brought about by him, of course. Within seconds his vision clears, and he takes in the sight before him. Dirt and wildlife within the impact zone had been vaporized, leaving behind a burning crater several meters across. He could only nod to himself as a light rain falls and begins putting out some of the wildfires. It might require clever planning and situational awareness, but his first original technique would certainly live up to expectations. It had to. Ugh, I'm really starting to get tired of this place. The purple-eyed Sujetsu complains loudly as they amble down a path in the Sky District. This is only the second time you've been here, you idiot. Karen snaps back from beside Sasuke. Yeah? Well, that's one time too many. The nerve. She shakes her head and turns her nose up at him. You should be grateful they provide the supplies we need. Kami knows you're all but useless to us, seeing as how you've failed to find any of the swords. Sasuke grimaces internally, knowing what Karen knowingly just instigated. Screw you. At least I'm not a waste of space in a fight like you. Suigetsu explodes. Humph. There's a reason Sasuke-kun came for me first. If Orochimaru would have had other shinobi who were as capable as these two yet quieter, Sasuke would have formed a team with them rather than Karen and Suigetsu. Unfortunately, they were the best help he could find. At least Yugo was different. Sasuke pushes aside those thoughts as he takes a turn from the main road and heads down a tunnel with visible pipes running through the ceiling. Back so soon? Inquires a small voice near the ground. Could it be that you've accomplished what you set out to do, Denka? He acknowledges the ninja cat. Some of us have while others not so much. Karen responds to the question while aiming another barb at Suigetsu, which gets the result one would expect. Enough, you two. They fall silent. Denka, we're here to see her before we set out. No problem, she's been expecting you for a good while. The clothed cat turns to lead the way. The four shinobi follow and soon find themselves in a little room where an old lady, a teenage girl, and a multitude of cats are sitting in wait. With a passive scan of the room, Sasuke walks over to the carpet and kneels before the elder. Granny, Sasuke-chan. He looks up to her wrinkled face. She has a dark, cat-like nose and wears a band in her gray hair with ears on them. His younger self hadn't been wrong in addressing her as Granny Cat. A pipe in her right hand creates a faint aroma in the room. I suppose the time has come? You are ready to fight your brother? Yes. The displeasure is evident in her tone, but he pays that no mind. She doesn't understand. It has to be done. We will need more supplies before we leave. Please, and you will have them. Tamaki-chan. The brunette flits around gathering a few pouches and laying them in front of him, and then grabbing a large cleaver-like sword which she hands to Suigetsu. It's hardly a legendary blade, but if you are to fight one of the seven, then better that than nothing. Your friend can keep it. Really? The young swordsman did not waste a second in grabbing the blade and swinging it around, sword arm bulging with artificial mass. I take back what I said earlier, this place isn't so bad, such an idiot. Karen mutters under her breath. The water user sends her a sharp smile. That's one issue down. When he'd recruited Suigetsu, the Hozuki had expressed an interest in finding the 7 legendary swords from the mist and making them his own. It worked well for Sasuke's intentions, seeing as how Itachi's partner Kisame had one of those swords, and by joining the Uchiha, Suigetsu would get the opportunity to challenge the tailless beast. Unfortunately, when Sasuke had led the team of 3 to take possession of the blade that had featured in his first C-A rank mission, they'd ran into a setback. Someone had taken the blade from Zabuza's resting site, and then someone else had taken it from the grave robbers. There were no clues as to who has it now, but Sasuke would not be surprised to find it with the leaf. Or Naruto in particular. His old teammate certainly knew how to complicate matters. With no executioner's blade to challenge Kisame, Suigetsu and Yugo had dedicated the last month or so to pursuing the other swords not currently in possession of the mist. As Karen had no issue pointing out, his efforts were not met with much success. It made for high tempers and more vicious arguments whenever the two interacted. Sasuke would have helped, but his time was better spent training his body and honing the techniques he would use against Itachi. Now, with the Kirin under his belt and a proper sword for Suigetsu, they were ready. Their next step would be tracking down Itachi. I know nothing I say will change your mind, and I've accepted that. Granny begins, making Sasuke turn back to her. But I do hope after it is all said and done that you will find some measure of peace, Sasuke-chan. In whatever form it may present itself. He bowed his head, grateful for her aid if not necessarily her words. Thank you, Granny. Not much else is said before he takes the team and heads out. Images fly before his eyes as he walks. Memories of his family, his clan, back when they were alive. A father who was stern but loved them just as much as their affectionate mother did. An older brother who was frequently busy yet would play with his sibling from time to time. Just as fast as the memories appear, they turn dark. So many bodies, so much blood. Everyone he knew, all of them dead. Not a single one survived that night, his eyes narrow in determination. He made a vow then, one he would see through. Nothing would deter him from that. Nothing at all. Goes. Tsunade POV. Her fingers tap idly on her desk surface as she scans the report in front of her again. Another sighting of Akatsuki members within the Land of Fire, except they were named this time, Itachi Uchiha and Kisame Hashigaki. Skilled individuals with unique traits that made them even more difficult to prepare for, but she had faith in her ninja. Tsunade did consider sending out the suppression platoon once more before deciding otherwise. The presence of Fugaku's boy complicated matters given the nature of his last assignment from the Leaf. After having him wipe out his whole clan, integrating him back into the village would be difficult, bordering on impossible, and yet, the thought of simply eliminating him left a bad taste in her mouth. She'd had to make hard choices back when she was a foot soldier and even recently as a Kage. But this situation is different from previous ones, and she would never be able to forgive herself for making a rash decision here. For now, capturing Itachi alive is the best plan of action, and the best way to achieve that is with a strong yet covert strike force. "My lady, they're all here," said Shizen before stepping aside and letting the members of Team Kakashi walk in. She then closes the door and moves over to stand behind Tsunade, who is taking the time to observe the trio. They all look healthy, and aside from Kakashi, they're primarily in civilian wear. "You're probably wondering why I called you three in here since your team is yet to be reactivated. The reason for that is this report I just received." A hand gestures down to her desk. Sightings of red clouds in the land of fire. More specifically, sightings of Itachi. Amusingly enough, it is her apprentice who shows the most outward reaction. She doesn't doubt the other two's ability to connect the dots, but neither of them display the same anticipation that Sakura does after doing so. "You're all aware of this. Itachi is currently the one identified member of the Akatsuki who defected from the Leaf and is no weakling. Between him and his partner, the tailless beast, Itachi is without doubt more dangerous." She meets the eyes of Team Kakashi one by one before cutting to the chase. "I want him captured and brought in alive." Aside from a nod, the second blonde in the room takes the news quite well. As he should, being part of the task force to incapacitate the elder Danzo and his subsequent interrogations. Naruto knew exactly why she would want Itachi brought in. That's part of why she wanted this team for the upcoming mission, Kakashi's Lone Eye Narrows. Tsunade imagines the shinobi is expressing multiple emotions with that reaction. From confidential mission reports she knows the two had history together, having served in the same Umbu squad, yet Itachi was also the one who'd left Kakashi Bedouin using a powerful illusion technique. That experience fighting with and against the Uchiha should be beneficial. As for Sakura, her reservations about such a task are plain to her sensei's eyes. Capturing powerful shinobi alive is always harder than simply killing them, but needs must. Her ability as a medic nin and fine chakra control would be a boon. This team is being selected for this mission for two reasons. First, I have faith in the ability of this team to perform. Secondly, it is possible that by pursuing Itachi, you may very well come across your wayward team member, Sasuke Uchiha. It is not guaranteed, but the chance of it happening means this team has a vested interest in this mission succeeding. That being said, if either of you would prefer not to be part of this mission, then speak up. Like she was expecting, no one objects. Now that we are on the same page, we can discuss the mission outline. The reports came through Jiraiya's network and established their location to be south of the Leaf as of 2 days ago. It's not very precise, meaning the first part of the mission will be to find them. Naruto and Kakashi, both of you possess abilities that lend themselves to tracking. For the sake of keeping the assembled squad to a manageable size, do you believe you need further assistance in finding the Akatsuki? Kakashi and Naruto share a look before the first nods and turns back to her. No, Hokage-sama. You can rely on us to track them down. Not surprising. Kakashi and his dog summons already made for a formidable tracking unit, so when combined with Naruto's senjutsu-provided sensing ability along with his emotion sensing, the two had everything they needed regarding that aspect. Very well. That leaves only one subject to be accounted for, which is Itachi's partner Kisame. Due to his special chakra-consuming sword and a previous encounter, I am assigning Team Guide to this mission. They will provide the needed firepower to engage with shinobi of this caliber, while also keeping the assembled squad from being cumbersome. Aside from you, Naruto, Team Kakashi should be familiar with working alongside Team Guy, which is another point in their favor. Are there any objections to this? As the team voices their assent with the chosen personnel, Tsunade nods to herself. An 8-man team is the largest she would have considered for the mission, so it's a good thing Team Kakashi has the required skill set to carry out the first part of the mission. It meant that she doesn't have to assign a tracking team, but instead focus on making sure whoever she picked would be able to contend with Kisame. Team Guy should be capable. That's good to hear. Shizen, if you would. The brunette bows and leaves the room. While we wait for Guy and his team to be brought in, I want to emphasize that Itachi is the priority. If you encounter Sasuke and can bring him in as well, then that's fine. Otherwise, I expect the older brother brought before me. Her voice gains a measure of softness. For what it's worth, however, knowing Itachi is being held here will likely compel your teammate to return. Goes. POV restored. Konoha. After what seemed like hours worth of strategizing, Tsunade finally called it a day and we were able to leave. Kakashi and Guy went off together, so it was just us 5 youngsters. It seems we've gotten another mission together, Naruto-san. Niji comments as we exit the building. Yes. Let's make sure it doesn't end the same way as our last one. I respond and catch an expression flit across his face. Probably remembering being used as a living pincushion. Indeed. Is all he says. Do not worry, my comrades. This team is most youthful and will surely succeed. Lee declares with the utmost confidence. Got to agree with that part. The 8 of us are more than enough. He likely won't need it, but I'm hoping to see Guy and the inner gates in action. Got to agree with Lee on this one. Tenten casts an eye over the group. You've all gotten stronger since that last mission, so your odds have improved. And better yet, I'm coming along on this one. She still hasn't let that go yet? Not like we're the ones who picked that team years ago, and me too. Sakura affirms. She seems a little off though. We'll get Sasuke back together. Do keep in mind the primary objective. The Byakugan user cautions while coming to a stop at an intersection. This might be an opportunity to redeem ourselves, but only if Sasuke Uchiha makes himself present. Hokage-sama warned against undue risks. Don't worry about that, Niji. We all know what takes priority. Tenten waves it off. I live down that way, so I'll see you all at the gate tomorrow. Bye everyone. Likewise. I must go as well. Goodbye Naruto, Sakura-chan. Waiting until they're gone, I turned to Sakura to study her. She'd originally been excited when hearing of this mission, but now there's something else mixed in. Join me for dinner? I offer her, to which she nods and joins me as I walk towards my place. Huh! You're not heading to Ichiraku's? Sakura asks with a finger pointing in their direction. Guess the unexpected turn I took drew her out of the autopilot mode she'd been on. No, I had lunch with them earlier, and I'm in the mood for something different. Even though delicious and prepared by people who have always been nice to Naruto and now me, eating ramen twice a day is a stretch. I'm going to make something myself back at home. You still want to come? Yeah, why not? I haven't seen your new apartment yet. It's near the Shinobi district, isn't it? I give her a look before she explains her question. I asked Sensei once, and that's what she told me. Well, it is. Come on. She's unusually quiet for the handful of minutes it takes to get there, and soon, I'm unlocking the door and beckoning her inside. This is it. Welcome, Sakura Haruno, to Uzumaki Palace. Sakura took her shoes off near the door as was custom before looking around the living room and the connected kitchen. It's definitely new and clean. Fits with the current you, I think. I know. Could use some more decorations, but I haven't gotten around to doing that yet. I smile faintly at her expert breakdown of my pad. Don't get me wrong, you have a good start here, but some personal touches would really enhance everything. Show that someone lives here. She offers. I'll do that eventually, give it a few more months. No need to spend time on stuff like that when they're not insured against almighty pushes. So, you were promised food. I could get it done much faster if you give me a hand? Clones were the usual option, but my senses tell me she has something on her mind, and cooking usually helps me work out my thoughts. What do you need me to do? She follows me into the kitchen and watches as I pull out pots and other materials. Actually, what are we making? I put out some meat there in the sink, so if you can prepare the vegetables while I work on that, we can have stir-fry for dinner. Leave it to me. Sakura rolls up her metaphorical sleeves and gets to slicing. As for me, I start in on the boneless lamb. This really brings up old memories. Not because I was some cooking expert back on Earth, far from it actually, but because stuff like this had never appealed to me. Preparing meat had always been something my parents did while I was growing up, and when I went off for college I had a meal plan, so there was no reason to ever learn how to do this. Somewhat embarrassing, but since I never got the chance to move and get a place of my own, it doesn't really matter. As a young orphan, however, Naruto had picked up some experience in this field, and joining Team 7 had built on it, so I had a good foundation to work with while traveling with Jiraiya. As we prepare the ingredients and then get around to frying everything, I glance periodically at my helper, whose expression faintly hints at the turmoil going on inside. With what we were talking about earlier, I have an idea as to what's bothering her, but I ask anyways while opening a cupboard where the plates are kept. Rio, for your thoughts? Rio? For my thoughts? She pauses, face a picture of confusion. What's worrying you? I explain. Thought that one would be easy to translate. It's not. Okay, maybe it is worry. I've been looking forward to this opportunity for so long, a chance to finally make things right. Make Team 7 whole again, or as much as possible. She trails off. It's good that she realizes the team won't be what it used to be. Too much has changed, Sasuke went rogue, which is really frowned upon in shinobi society. I don't see it within me to create that bond of pseudo-brotherhood the two eventually had, and honestly just a bunch of other reasons that will make themselves apparent when the time comes. And now? I ask leadingly. It's just, how do you think he will respond? I raise an eyebrow in prompt. Sasuke. His dream ever since that day has been to avenge his clan by killing Itachi. He left the village, because he thought Orochimaru could help him do that. That's the most important thing to him. I can tell it pains her to say something like that out loud. The plan is to use Itachi to get to Sasuke, so say we succeed in capturing them both, or maybe even just Itachi. How would Sasuke react to that when he wants to personally kill Itachi? Would he hate us? I find myself humming. There it is. The question I can't really answer because she's not allowed to know certain things just yet. I gesture with my head to move everything to the table, giving myself a few extra moments to think this over. Sasuke wants to kill Itachi while Itachi wants Sasuke to kill him. Neither want outsiders butting in, so each will bring backup to ensure that. And then you have us, the Leaf, who want to go against what the brothers want. Even worse, it's the same Leaf that gave Itachi the task of killing his people. Yeah. Either way you look at it, Sasuke will eventually have plenty of reason to be angry with us. But I don't want to depress her further. Honestly, Sakura, you're right. We are absolutely interfering with Sasuke's mission in life, and he will definitely be mad if we succeed. Keyword there. If. Apologies in advance, Tsunade. But I don't think it will be unsalvageable. This mission is just part of Tsunade's overarching plan, and I'm sure that if we handle it, and any blowout accordingly, then the final outcome will be something we're all happy with. So it's a good thing that we are the ones assigned to it rather than a team with no connection to Sasuke. I won't tell you not to worry. I can't predict the future after all, but I'm certain that we'll be able to overcome whatever happens. She's silent for a while, and once again I acknowledge that comforting people isn't my strongest point. Maybe you're right, she nods hesitantly. Of course Tsunade-sensei would have considered that issue. Instead of the negative, I should be looking at the positives. We'll deal with any problems as a team. Exactly. That's the attitude we need heading into this mission. Now try the food and tell me if we did a good job. Smiling, she does just that. It's good. Taste it. I will. Just going to wait a few minutes in case you start feeling sick or some. I'm joking. I catch a piece of veggie that had suddenly decided to become a missile and pop it into my mouth. It is pretty good. Well done. Turns out letting Sakura help in the kitchen isn't a bad idea. Her specially crafted medicine pills are still disgusting, however. The time has come. We head out today. I calmly raise my hands over my head so the two clones can lower the connected chest and back plates. When the shoulder straps find their place, I lower my arms to be parallel to the floor while the side straps are adjusted for a snug fit. The high-collared shoulder piece comes next, and they make quick work fastening it. I go about testing my range of movement, and after finding it satisfactory, move on to the various seals on my armor. Privacy seals protecting against dojutsu users are intact. Trio of storage seals on my chest, 2 are in standby while the last holds the Kusanagi blade. Forearm protector seals are all occupied. Took the time last night to create an inventory suited for this mission. As I go through the rest and my clones continue with their preparations, my mind wanders. This mission is looking to be an interesting one. In others before this, I had a good idea of what to expect, and that functioned as a crutch of sorts. Due to changes caused almost completely by me, certain factors differ from what I saw years ago. Sasuke has been out from the snake's grasp for much longer than the original had. I assume he's gathered his team by now and should be closing in on Itachi much like we are. The Avenger also lost out on fighting the snake and the suicide bomber, 2 experiences which might have shaped how the confrontation with Itachi went down. In fact, if he still needed the snake to help complete his lightning technique, then he might have lost his strongest attack. I regret nothing. Other things to note is the possible interference of Obito should we close in on Itachi and Sasuke too soon. Progress with the anti-time and space seal is not going very well, but I have alternate plans, assuming we encounter him. Even more importantly, however, if the Uchiha brothers do fight, Black Zetsu is almost guaranteed to be nearby, being the opportunist that he is. As such, despite how dangerous Obito is and how beneficial Project Rinnegan is, Operation Pandora's Box takes priority. For obvious reasons, I move over to the coffee table where a trio of clones are preparing 2 scrolls. Near one scroll is a familiar set of medical equipment and miscellaneous items, while near the other is a black cube, roughly 30 centimeter long sides and covered in intricate seals that are invisible in its inactive state. The thing looks both odd and also not odd enough for its intended purpose. It doesn't really matter since no one is to interact with it after I hide it. Testing. Prompts a clone and I nod. The box is lifted and placed onto the seal array and quickly vanishes with a small application of chakra. I feel the expected pulse on my chest and channel chakra into the second storage seal there, and out comes the box. I put it back into storage and seconds later the clone has it sitting on the scroll in front of him. Next, we do the same test with the other scroll and its contents before packing up. Everything seems to be in order. No one can know about my secondary objectives, doesn't matter if they come about or not, so once again my clones are performing missions on their own while I stay with my squad members. Both to protect them if need be and because between the Sharingan and Byakugan, leaving a clone in my spot might be discovered. I would have liked to send Kurama, but he has unfinished business with a certain Uchiha. My clones should be capable anyhow. They're practically 3S ranks at this point. With one last mental check, I head out the door. Plans to be disrupted and whatnot. Goes. Itachi POV. From a throne-like seat in the Uchiha hideout, red eyes narrow minutely as memories from one of the clones fills his mind. He's been running for several minutes in search of his target, Naruto Uzumaki, who reports say had once been the closest person to his younger brother. At least before he left the village. Such a relation explained why Zetsu's intel included him in the Leaf Squad sent to capture him and Sasuke, if found. His intent is to get a proper reading on the young shinobi to see where he would fit into his plans. Perhaps he could serve as his brother's keeper. He hopes it won't get to that point, but hopes don't always become reality. The Kinslayer would know that best. From up ahead, a presence catches his attention, and as he gets closer he notes that it is the person he's looking. Or rather, a shadow clone. His eyes reveal the truth. This confirms that the leaf is in the general area, but for the conversation he has planned, the original would be the optimal participant. Gazing down at the approaching clone from a high branch, he makes note of which direction he came from and then recalls the typical patterns leaf pursuit teams employed in the past. It isn't an exact calculation. The sheer amount of shadow clones the Uzumaki is said to be capable of makes it even more challenging, but he eventually settles on a route that could take him to the other squad members and perhaps the original. With a last glance he turns to move away. Movement from his peripheral interrupts. Leaving so soon? The seemingly unaware clone now stands in a tree just meters from him. Surprising. Impassively, he turns and makes eye contact with eyes that are yellow rather than the expected blue. The pupils are off as well and the serious expression is leagues different from that encounter years previous. Even further, the attempt at a genjutsu fails almost from the onset. Another surprise. Hello, Naruto-kun. He doesn't try for another illusion. That would likely only be a waste of chakra he currently couldn't afford. Itachi Uchiha. The clone responds. I wish to speak with you directly, but I suppose a shadow clone will work for now. How long can you maintain this? It would seem seeking the original is no longer feasible. Although, this is not how he foresaw such a discussion to begin. His mind runs through the reasons why the Leaf Shinobi would claim to want to talk rather than capture him. To delay perhaps? Regarding the question, however, long enough I would suppose. Good. The blonde looks off to the side momentarily as if in thought. Before he can speak the clone continues, I'm sure you've heard the news about the snake being killed. Well, afterwards, several of his bases were found and searched. In one of them, evidence of dealings between said snake and the elder Danzo was found. The Hokage of course had him questioned. He was brought in on multiple charges. The clone gazes at him, one of which being bloodline theft. Just those short lines provide him with an idea of where this conversation might head. Danzo was always a wily character, and scrupulous if it would benefit his village. Hearing this did not surprise him, rather it is the question of why the clone feels the need to tell him this that sets his mind pondering. Could the elder have done what he is starting to think he did? Danzo possessed a Sharingan eye in his right eye socket, and a right arm composed of tissue cultivated from the first Hokage's corpse and 10 Sharingan orbs embedded in it. The snake's notes detail helping create the limb. I see. The manner in which he says those words do nothing to convey the emotion he feels inside. The sheer anger, frustration, sense of betrayal. Above all, when he finally masters himself again, is the feeling of tiredness. How much more would this world take from him? The deception and secrets, the underhand tactics, he understands the need for it all, but his own village? After everything he did for them? For Danzo, I was part of the effort to bring him in. The eye in his head was destroyed while capturing him, and the artificial arm was severed. There are discussions to destroy it as well, but it is also possible Jiraiya will seal it away with the toads. After a quick second, Itachi decides both are tolerable options. He stares at the clone who then continues, His questioning revealed much: his part in the Uchiha massacre, an attack on Shursui Uchiha to obtain his Sharingan, and most importantly, your role in the event. Itachi takes a breath in and slowly releases it. At long last he finally knows what brought Shursui before him that night, down one eye and on the verge of death. He supposes it's good to know a part of his best friend is no longer in the hands of a treacherous warmonger. He can only pray Tsunade-sama takes more after the third than the root commander. As for the rest, this revelation would have shocked him had it came earlier. But at the moment, it was simply the logical result after interrogating someone who had been involved with the events of that night. It does complicate matters, however. He could not guarantee keeping the secret from his little brother if others in the village now know. Long-made plans are in need of adjustment. Is this why you came seeking me? To bring me back to the village and serve again? Such would explain why only now the Leaf is making a move against him. Assuming the priority is not Sasuke. Either way, he would have to resist capture. He did not have much longer to do what was required. That is the mission, yes. The Hokage wants you captured alive. Something told him there was more. You have alternate plans? That depends. For so long, you were the villain in this story. You killed your clan and traumatized your little brother. But as life frequently shows us, things are not always what they appear. The clone nods then. You Itachi Uchiha did what you believed you had to. Backed into a corner, manipulated by one you should have been able to trust, you still took the burden onto your shoulders because you loved your brother, and such was the only path to protect him. Knowing what I do of your sacrifice, the only thing that remains is to hear of your intentions for Sasuke. What will you do when you face him? With all pretenses done away with, Itachi finds himself in a situation where he can tell the truth. Has to tell the truth as he can see nothing less would suffice. And to be honest, he wants to. The disease doesn't affect the clone like it does the original, but he remembers well the feeling. The knowledge that his body is shutting down on him, and that each mission is a step closer to being his last. If he wants Sasuke to kill him and get retribution for the clan he killed, then he doesn't have much longer. Fighting the Leaf Squad would hasten the process, and it is possible he would die without atoning for his actions, which he won't accept. He will go out on his terms. And although he had a different picture in mind, coming clean now and later with Sasuke is not necessarily a bad thing. Better he tell his impressionable younger brother the truth rather than someone with malicious intentions. Yes, if he truly loves Sasuke, dying and leaving him in the dark is not the best way. He has to have faith that his little brother will understand and live a good life. That's all he ever really wanted for him. His hand will deliver justice for the innocents I killed. The words lift a weight off his shoulders. For his part, the clone is silent for a long moment. Eyes narrow as they drill into his, searching for the truth. And then he takes a step back and nods again. I will try for time then. Naruto-kun, Itachi calls as he feels his chakra waning. After it is done, bring Sasuke back with you. To the Leaf. Right before he disperses, he hears it, of course. The original Itachi closes his eyes with a small smile. He did not anticipate this coming about, but perhaps it's for the best. With a few hand seals a crow is brought into existence, and with one glance, slowly taken out, black flames rage as the crow caws. Staring at him with one blood-red eye, he'll put his trust in his brother. Chapter 11, A Fated Battle. Itachi POV. He sits there, on a seat designed to look like a throne, with seemingly no worry, legs crossing at the ankles, left over right. Hands similarly clasped, dominant right holding on to the left poking out of the top of his cloak. Eyes shut while his head reclines against the top of the throne. As with everything Itachi Uchiha does, he presents the picture of poise. Of being in control even when he isn't. Despite pain both emotional and physical as well as impending death, this reunion would be handled in the same fashion. So at the sound of approaching footsteps he makes no movement other than to lazily open his eyes, Sharingan orbs meeting another pair. Sasuke, the precious little brother who could never hide how much he looked up to his elder brother. The so-called prodigy, the perfect heir and shinobi. Theirs had been a strong bond at one point, weakened by duty perhaps, but always present. Always to be relied on when it mattered most. Itachi still remembers the smiles the shiny-eyed toddler would send his way after any time apart. Be it a few hours apart, or weeks due to missions, little Sasuke was always the one bright light in his life. He remains that light even now, but he would willingly admit to missing those smiles. The brotherly love. Unfortunately, the expression Sasuke bears is completely deserved. The loathing stare, it would forever be a reminder of where Itachi failed his little brother. Of the time when the darkness so prevalent in humanity tried to overcome the one lit corner of his heart. Tried and yet failed. Life may have torn his brother from him, but he would always carry him in his heart and mind. Alas, it is all too common where the gentle approach is not the correct one. He would have to harden his heart, and will one last time to provide a final lesson to his brother. So even as he burns the somewhat blurry sight into his memory, if only to take it with him to the next life, Itachi takes the opportunity and molds chakra. Illusions have always been his specialty, so that is what he begins this last confrontation with. Such was his experience and talent that the genjutsu is cast, and then weaved with a trio more while his brother hardly feels the intrusion. Within a fraction of a second of eye contact, the battle had begun. Goes, Leaf Squad. The two-team coalition pursuing Itachi Uchiha move rapidly among the forest, flitting from one branch to another. The original plan, starting at a center point and slowly expanding outwards tracking the rogue ninja by scent, had not worked as intended. Indeed, they'd been at it for hours before Naruto brought news of the Uchiha's shadow clone, which actually gave them their best means of tracking him. As skilled as the infamous prodigy was, the forest environment meant he'd left just enough clues for someone who can see down to the microscopic level to detect signs of his passage. The lone Hyuga was more than up to the task, so with that, the squads moved as one. Leading their loose formation is an unusually serious guy, boisterous and playful demeanor set aside for the mission. Near the center are their two current trackers, Neji and Naruto. The Hyuga with his Byakugan blazing as he visually scouts almost a kilometer around them with minute shifts of his head. In his thoughts he once again praises his cousin who's trained her eyes to be able to see several kilometers. Such might have been of use for the mission. Beside him the soul blonde casts his awareness beyond his body to sense foreign chakra and negative emotions. Normally blue eyes are yellow with cross-shaped pupils denoting his partial use of the Kurama cloak in what he calls the hover state mixed with sage mode. The two abilities combining to enhance the Jinchuriki's tracking capabilities to beyond the vision of his dark-haired counterpart. As such, he is first to sound the alarm. I've picked up something. Naruto's eyes narrow as he turns his head, 7 degrees left of our current direction. A single chakra signature. Doesn't match Itachi's. Approximate distance? Asks Kakashi from where he is acting as the rear guard. Seeing as how scent was no longer an option to catch their target, he'd sent away all of the ninja dogs aside from Pakken and set himself at the back of the formation. He trusts his physically superior friend to handle any attacks head-on, while he covers their rear alongside his summon. 6.5 kilometers. The Uzumaki informs the squad with a frown. But something isn't right here. He didn't get to that position from outside my range, he just appeared there. Some sort of seal barrier that blocked your senses? Offers Tenten. She possesses a minor knowledge about seals due to her reliance upon storage scrolls. An encapsulated area that he either left or works best at long distance, perhaps. Could also be a form of summoning or teleportation technique. Sakura suggests in turn. All are possible methods, but with the variety of skill sets and techniques available to the Akatsuki, we can't assume anything as of yet. Kakashi advises. The after report on Kakuzu and his partner had been an eye-opener as to how esoteric the members of the organization could be. When we get in range, but before we engage, I want you to relay a visual on them, Neji. Of course, Kakashi-sensei. He nods. From the front, guys silently adjust their trajectory while they ready themselves in case of combat. Getting close, 2 kilometers away. And now 1. Naruto reports as they closed in. How much closer, Neji? This is close enough. The Hyuga finally speaks out and they slow to a stop. One person, Akatsuki cloak. They are wearing a mask with seals that prevent me from seeing through it. Would say that they appear to be male in shape. In summary, an unknown. I see. This capture mission just became more complicated. Guy frowns. His miniature clone hums beside him. How will we advance, Guy-sensei? With caution. If he is Akatsuki, then he is likely an S-rank nin. Not knowing his identity makes this more dangerous. He turns to his fellow sensei. What say you, Kakashi? Should we go greet them? The silver-haired Jonin voices what everyone is thinking. We have to engage, as going around may leave our backs open to attack. Keep in mind that he could be expecting us, and all that entails. I would also like to remind you that the Akatsuki normally move in pairs. Naruto throws in. No one has to question why he said that. There could very well be another S-rank nearby serving as a partner to this one. Very well. Use Formation C, Attack Pattern 2. Move in! Kakashi calls and they are off again, slowly splitting into 2 groups. Formation C means Neji stays out of the direct confrontation to oversee the development, while Sakura and Tenten accompany him. One acting as the field medic who mustn't sustain injury while the other watches over the other 2 and provides long-range support if needed. Resting on Neji's shoulder, Pack and serves as another scout. So as called for, mere moments later when the Akatsuki member wearing an orange spiral mask comes into view, the other members of the squad carry out attack pattern number 2, instantly unlocking the second gate of healing. Guy plants a foot and blurs. A branch off to the side used as a leaping platform barely has time to burst into shreds before his leg is rapidly approaching the rogue shinobi's face in a dynamic entry. Where Guy goes high, Kakashi goes low. The silver-haired Jonin leaping forward, umbrella blade in hand set for a strike to the midsection. His lone Sharingan tracks the progress of Guy's leg and his blade as the window for evasive maneuvering closes. It's that close scrutiny that informs him what happens next is not a delusion. None of the attacks land. Not his, not Guy's, and certainly not the pair of kunai sent by Naruto to complete the full pincer movement. And it's not because their opponent was able to evade them all, rather, everything went through him. The kick entered one side of his head and appeared out the other while Kakashi ended up on the other side of the knee. Quickly correcting his balance, he leaps to a safe position to observe the Akatsuki member once again. Phew, you leaf ninjas sure are no joke. The masked figure swipes imaginary sweat off his forehead, exaggerating the movement. You guys almost had me. Guy, for his part, stares. As someone who's experienced a lot during his time as a shinobi and wears a mask of sorts to cover it up, he has a good eye for such falsities. This opponent is more than meets the eye to stand there surrounded while putting forth an attitude like that. But then again, a technique to avoid physical harm would likely lead to such levity, even if just an act. The green beast glances at his longtime friends standing behind the masked fellow, and then to their students standing facing him. He didn't expect otherwise, but none seemed to have an understanding of what occurred earlier, meaning they could retreat or engage further for opportunities to observe. Turning away would not help with the mission, however. But don't think that means I'll let you get past me, though. Toby's a good boy, and he was told not to let the scary leaf ninja through. The self-identified Toby sinks into the branch beneath him and appears on one behind Kakashi, neatly escaping the triangle he was in and likely getting between them and their objective. There. All better, he says, voice dripping with taunting cheer. The four-leaf shinobi take the opportunity granted and quickly regroup, moving back to where Niji and the girls are positioned. I don't know what to think of this guy, Sakura shares, eyeing the masked man simply waiting for them rather than engaging. He waves happily. From here it looked like he completely negated your attacks, almost phasing through them. I believe that may very well be the case, Sakura-san. Niji agrees. Right before contact I was able to see an irregularity in his chakra. It became blurry, for lack of better word. The areas targeted seemed to lose integrity while the rest of his body was unaffected. I felt something similar. His overall chakra fluctuated and then decreased. Like some of it was no longer there. Seeing as how it's back to normal now, I would say it's a technique he's using. Indeed. Niji nods at Naruto, one activated with no hand seals. Could it be automatic? Like the Kazekage-san defense? Lee wonders, looking perplexed. The mechanics behind them should greatly differ, but that is a possibility. A very grim one. Kakashi acknowledges. We need more information before we can draw any conclusions. Same formation, attack at will. 10-10, see if you can target any blind spots he has. Any hit would mean his defense is not automatic. Will do. The weapon's mistress affirms. This time when the four spread out and engage, Naruto takes the lead wielding two kunai. Rapid swipes see the masked ninja leaning and swerving to avoid them. WO. Be careful or you could hurt someone with those. Toby continues his childish act while the blonde takes the time to observe the second largest obstacle in his path to eliminate the Akatsuki. Toby is fast, as expected of someone trained by Madara and possessing cells from the first, but Naruto knows he's holding back. Both of them are really, each for their own reasons. He slashes diagonally down to the left, which causes Toby to duck into a crouch and reach out for Naruto's leg. The Uzumaki, knowing what the contact could result in as Toby is tangible at the moment, pumps the brakes and hops backward. A perfectly timed fireball from Kakashi crashes into the crouched opponent. Catching his sensei's eye upon landing, Naruto shakes his head. It was well executed, but sensing that same shift in chakra signature from before meant their opponent had gone intangible. Indeed, Toby appears on a different branch clapping enthusiastically, bravo! Such teamwork, no wonder Lee appears beside him cutting him off. Well? Kakashi lands near Naruto, both keeping an eye out as Guy and Lee show off their teamwork. Their familiarity and speed not allowing Toby to dodge all their attacks but instead phase through some. Can't say if it's automatic yet, but clearly he can choose to physically dodge certain attempts. Could be because he can, or perhaps there are limits to his technique. Naruto reports. I have something in mind that might answer that question for us. You three will have to keep him busy while I summon a couple toads. If his objective is to prevent us from closing in on Itachi, then I don't think he'll mind us taking our time here. We'll keep him busy. Kakashi promises. Thanks. Have you considered using your Manjikyu ability on him? I have, Kakashi grimaces. Since it provides no forewarning and is a ranged technique, warping their opponent could potentially be a way to defeat him, but doing such comes with risks. Even one use would take a toll on my stamina and chakra reserves. Don't want to do that with Itachi and Kisame on the horizon. I thought so. This should help with that. Naruto comments, before placing a hand on Kakashi's shoulder and concentrating. From that point of contact, a shroud of red chakra forms and quickly begins to envelop his sensei. Oh? The copy ninja raises a hand to his face, analyzing the visible chakra. Internally, he can feel his reserves being bolstered while the fatigue and slight strain from keeping the ocular implant uncovered fades. It's a good feeling, the increase in power not too dissimilar to opening the few gates he's capable of. He also takes note of the tail waving in the air behind him. This chakra, is it? Yeah, it is. Use it wisely. The blonde moves away. While Kakashi focuses back on the battle now, looking for the best instant to intervene, Naruto finds a safe distance to put one of multiple contingencies into effect. He quickly bites the inner side of his lip and swipes a gloved thumb in the ensuing blood before the wound can heal. He runs through hand seals and slams a hand onto the wood beneath him, which results in a small cloud of smoke before two small, elderly toads are revealed. Greetings. Sorry for being abrupt, but I could really use your help. Goes. Itachi POV. Landing atop the Uchiha hideout building, Itachi takes a moment to breathe while waiting to see the status of his brother through one opened eye. The smoke and residual flames disappear, revealing Sasuke being protected by unsightly wings growing out of his back. TCH, these wounds are nothing, he huffs, rising and leaping onto the roof as well. They won't slow me down at all. Silently pleased with his perseverance and ability to push through, Itachi slowly rises from his crouching position with a hidden wince. The blade from the windmill shuriken didn't penetrate his leg all that deep, but it is enough to impede his movement. Said wound, combined with his quickly dwindling reserves and twitching left eye caused by the failed Tsukuyumi, put him on the back foot. This couldn't go on much longer. Luckily, Sasuke is in no mood to stall and prepares another attack. Recognizing and matching his hand seals, the brothers each launch a fireball at the other. The ninjutsu that was seen as a rite of passage for any young Uchiha wishing to become a shinobi. Their father had drilled Itachi on it at one point. Same for Sasuke. A shared experience. Who could have predicted that the day would come when they would turn the jutsu on one another? Regardless of his inner thoughts, the two fireballs meet in the center and vie for supremacy. He doesn't hold back, yet Itachi feels the exact moment when his technique starts losing ground. Accepting the truth and not willing to concede, his right eye slowly opens and summons the black flames of Amaterasu into being. In almost no time at all, the normal flames disappear, having been burned away by his potent ocular ability. Sasuke, seeing this and likely realizing the danger of remaining as still target, dashes about, flames pursuing him. If burning him entirely had been Itachi's goal, Sasuke's evasive movements would not have prevented it, being both too close and too slow to avoid such an outcome. Indeed, it's the hand-shaped wings that Itachi is targeting, and sooner than later his dwindled accuracy locks onto them, and they catch fire. Sasuke collapses with a cry. He makes his way over to Sasuke's prone body and bends down before jumping back at the last second. He doesn't completely evade the dragon flame fired from below, but the damage is minimal. Essentially nothing compared to the gaping hole left in the roof. It's what allows him to look down at Sasuke as the marks on his face from Orochimaru's curse seal dissipate. That Amaterasu of yours, it seems to have taken quite a lot out of you. The younger Uchiha falls onto a knee, matching the eldest's weakened stance. Likewise, I can tell by looking that you're out of chakra. Itachi comments to his brother. He also deduces that Sasuke used the Orochimaru-style substitution jutsu to hide. I don't have any left. Sasuke admits, but doesn't look defeated just yet. I used most of it in that last dragon flame jutsu. As they speak, the overabundance of heat from their flames rises up into the atmosphere, leading to a chain of reactions. Rain starts falling, lightning flashing and thunder echoing above them. Now, Itachi, you asked for it, so here it is at last. Rain droplets splatter against the roof. The lightning seems to flash even brighter and more frequently. I'll make your death a reality. It's at that point that Itachi realizes Sasuke might have a final effort left in him despite being low on chakra. He casts a quick look into the sky where lightning seems to coalesce, forming a being composed of energy. Come! Sasuke yells out, hand enveloped with lightning chakra. Kirin, seeing the sheer amount of power poised to descend on him at the speed of lightning, Itachi knows he has to do something. Despite the urgency, his lips twitch the slightest bit. Leave it to his little brother to command the heavens like this. The smile doesn't fade even as he prepares his defense, and the lightning avatar strikes down with all the force of an angry god. Goes. Clone POV. The clone holds up a closed fist to his fellows, waiting for the best moment to strike. The other hand holds a readied Pandora's box. Out of the three created and tasked with taking out the trash, this particular clone came into existence first, and therefore obtained the self-given designation of Alpha. Bravo and Charlie are currently waiting behind him for the signal. They didn't necessarily need it with the light show being put on by Sasuke, but a chain of command made things more orderly. They were also bored, and pretending to be a squad of black ops made it more interesting. Not that they were just pretending at this point. Being completely off the books and off the radar, they basically were covert operatives, their clandestine mission having started with sneaking out of Konoha sometime after the official squad left, and then looping around Naruto Prime and Co to reach Itachi's final destination. They'd taken special care to avoid detection by using aerostep and hiding among the clouds. As such, they were already in position to watch as Sasuke arrived at the hideout, and felt more than saw the presence of Black Zetsu. The parasite really needed to be eliminated. Never before had they felt something so poignant through their negative emotion sensing. Even without knowledge of his deeds, they would have written off Black Zetsu as evil. It was repulsive, really. They hadn't remained in the sky for too long after the brothers engaged. None of them wished to see if the lightning jutsu would indeed follow Sasuke's will, if there was something else much closer for it to target. So they made another loop to descend while remaining undetected, now hiding amongst, but not touching, the treetops via aerostep. The clones wait. At last, they see the Kirin starting to form, and Alpha gestures to his brethren. Making sure not to disturb the environment around them, they slowly close in and stop at the edge of the tree cover. Fortunately, the one thereafter made sure to put some distance between him and what would soon be ground zero. Makes this next step much easier. The lightning construct strikes, heavily obscuring all physical senses. It speaks to how well coordinated they are that Alpha hardly needs to signal before the squad moves. Just like Prime had practiced, Alpha takes off at an angle while Bravo takes the direct approach with Charlie hanging back. From up above the two, Alpha catches the moment as Bravo arrives upon Zetsu wearing the full Karama Chakra shroud and forms a large hand to scoop into the floor. He then uses all the power granted by that state to leverage the hand and shovel out the plant creature, sending him into the sky towards Alpha. It takes a slight adjustment in altitude, but Alpha quickly closes in while avoiding the chunks of building likewise thrown into the air. Before he even has to plan for it, Bravo is on the other side of Zetsu prying open the Venus flytrap-like head covering. Wah dash! There are two distinct expressions of surprise before the open top of the box connects with the right side of the being. No, too bad for the millennial chess master, that one touch is enough. Like being vacuumed, he's ripped off his favorite carrier and sucked into the contraption. Prime had expected both black and white Zetsu to be sealed away, but the clones were nothing if not adaptable. Alpha shuts and locks the box with all haste while Bravo punches a fist through white Zetsu's head, which turns it into a sapling. Not wasting a second longer, they both body flicker in midair to another predetermined area around the hideout. Charlie joins them a second later. All clear. He announces, meaning he'd seen no sign of Black Zetsu escaping and that the Uchiha brothers also hadn't noticed anything. Good. Alpha replies while not taking his eyes off the box. The array of seals covering its exterior were still lit up, and although he didn't have a heart like an actual person, his mind is kind enough to provide the phantom sensation of it beating erratically. If this thing failed, thoughts of a wild race to throw some litter into orbit slowly died down as the seals go dormant again, signifying a successful capture. Oh, thank Kami, he sighs in relief. Beside him, Bravo lets the shroud fade away as the danger passes. Charlie provides the special scroll, and the box is sealed away. It's Prime's responsibility now. And that's Operation Pandora's Box done with. He doesn't have to say much more than that, not when they're all clones of the same person and have almost identical thought patterns. Each of them recognize the importance of what just occurred, and each knows what comes next. They're professionals like that. Are you going to keep lugging that tree around with you? Charlie asks Bravo, who still has the accessory hanging off his arm. Mostly professionals. Goes. POV restored. I maintain my position as Fukasaku and Shima begin the song that heralds their demoni illusion, Toad's confrontation chant. It will take a short moment before they're fully harmonized, so we just have to keep Obito occupied while protecting the two elders. I momentarily cast my attention outwards, catching the anxiousness and anticipation rolling off our sentry and support squad. Seems Obito's Kamui is getting the respect it deserves from them, which is to be expected. It's quite frustrating watching Guy and Lee weave in and out attempting to land a hit and failing while Obito pretends to be some airhead. I personally wouldn't be so collected if I didn't have the means to combat him. 3 clones appear beside me before they each transform into kunai, which I palm. With my other hand I unseal a few regular kunai and get ready for what I'm expecting. Obito spins around a punch from Lee, ducks under his roundhouse kick, and then phases through all of Guy's significantly faster and more powerful attacks before managing to clear some space. He hardly lands on an adjacent branch when Kakashi makes his move. It's the first time I'm seeing his version of the Kamui in action, and it's somewhat interesting. The dark focal point centered on Obito's chest that quickly starts pulling in its immediate surroundings. It's what I picture a black hole to look like, although much weaker. The sight doesn't rob me of my composure, however, acting fast and launching all the kunai in my hands towards Obito while flexing my chakra to turn 6 into 100. The hail of real metal and chakra tools fly across the clearing and blanket the area where Obito used to stand. There's a pregnant silence as everyone takes in what just happened. No one drops their guard just yet, which is good because seconds later, Obito drops back down among us. A little worse for wear but still intact. "I'm back!" he yells while ignoring the tears and scratches in his cloak. Try as he might, there's no deceiving my emotion sensing. The simmering anger and hatred that had previously been aimed at our group had only magnified. I wouldn't be surprised to learn it's his old teammate he's really upset with now. Speaking of Kakashi, I pick up the surprise and frustration he feels towards what he probably sees as a faulty usage of his Kamui. With what I know and remember, I don't think he messed up there. No, his Kamui worked as Obito wasn't expecting it, and the rogue was sent back into their shared dimension. Same with the many projectiles and being on the same plane, they were able to do some actual damage to him. Shame that it all looks superficial, but my real objective with the kunai was to camouflage my transformed clones with the shadow kunai technique and position those clones in the Kamui dimension. 2 of the 3 are now in there. "Did you me?" He stops mid-sentence, body ceasing all movement, and I blitz him. Manjikyu Sharingan, years of combat experience, implanted cells. None of them make up for the fact that his timing couldn't have been any worse, seeing as how he is now trapped in the Toad's unique, sound-based genjutsu. One which traps the victim's mind and renders their body inert until the technique ends, or their body is killed. I was fully prepared to lend the Elder's chakra cloaks to prolong their song and outlast Obito's intangibility timer, but that wasn't needed. I decapitate Obito with a simple wind-coated kunai. A cut so fine, the body stands there for a moment before the separated pieces fall from the tree and towards the ground. A beat, then another. He's still alive! The horror movie warning comes from Niji, our eye in the sky. Very much appreciated but not necessary when Obito announces his resurrection himself. Arg! A sound of pure rage and loss. Chakra surging wildly, refusing to be contained. Uzumaki I immediately body flicker from my position, just in time as something smashes through the branch and leaves the limb to be taken by gravity. My eyes narrow, focusing on the sight before me. It's definitely Obito despite the change. Sticking out from his back and tearing into his robes are tendrils of wooden spikes. As I watch, he grows a long thorn from his wrist which falls into his hand, a weapon obviously. It's easy to tell that the once mockingly playful Uchiha is enraged. Too obvious. What isn't so obvious is the reason why. His mask, instead of the one eye hole, it now has 2. The original hole and a new one that looks like someone made it hastily. Or with hands shaking from anger. Oh, could it be? I once hypothesized that Obito had another Sharingan under his mask. It made sense as he contributed to the Uchiha massacre, and no doubt stole a few eyes as just compensation. Knowing what I do about the clan's secret techniques, having fresh eyes on hand for emergency usage of Izanagi would be a logical plan. So Obito would have one in the socket he later used for the Rinnegan. The perfect method to avoid death. That wasn't the case, however. If he uncovered that eye to now see after performing the Uchiha brand of rewriting reality, it stands to reason that eye is not what was used. Meaning the other one was. The Manjikyu possessing the ability of Kamui. Something Obito depended on dearly. I don't quite break into laughter, but that's only because of how serious the situation is. Giving credit where due, I did not expect this. The Toad's demonic genjutsu disconnects the target from their body, so I wasn't sure Obito would be able to activate Izanagi in that state at all, and yet, he did. Somehow. Even despite essentially dying separated from his body and therefore his Sharingan. More Uchiha favoritism. Too bad for him, and luckily for us, it seems he defaulted to what he was most accustomed to and sacrificed his right eye. Is this what plot armor looks like? All that runs through my mind as I stare down an enraged Obito who likely blames me for his loss. I was going to save you for last, he growls, already moving to attack. Not anymore, most definitely blames me. I swing around a tree trunk, and then descend to the forest floor before leaping between a series of branches. All that to avoid a charging Obito and the wooden spikes being flung at me. I do note that he's moving faster than earlier. In fact, his eyes and physical amps might have placed him on par with my Sage mode. Can't have that. Fall back! I yell to the other three. For the first time against a real enemy, my Kurama cloak comes into play. Chakra bright and flickering like flames erupts and molds to my body, various black markings breaking up the orange aura around me. It feels great to finally use this, but I have an important task to see to. If he truly is vulnerable right now, then I'm going to take full advantage. I charge him, the shroud providing additional buffs to my considerable capabilities. Appearing inside his guard, I grab hold of his wrist holding another wooden stake and send a brutal knee into his stomach. Aside from cutting his head off earlier, that blow is the first we've landed on him today. Quite cathartic. My free elbow drops down onto the back of his head, while simultaneously twisting his wrist, making him drop the makeshift weapon. I bat it away and use the movement to spin and plant my sandal into his side, launching him away from the rest of my squad. As is my custom, I don't let up. Likely due to the Hashirama cells in his body, the blow to the side didn't kill him. He merely catches himself after going through a couple trees and returns fire with literal fire. A massive stream that widens as it closes in on me, using the forest for further fuel. I mold chakra and release it in the form of my liquid nitrogen technique, the only wind jutsu I know that can trump fire despite the elemental weakness. With the sheer amount of chakra I have to empower the jutsu, it narrowly overcomes the flames and blankets the environment in a layer of frost. Something that Obito wants nothing to do with as he withdraws to an untouched part of the forest and drops to the ground. I already suspect he has wood release techniques, so as he slams both hands down and launches countless wooden spears at my approaching form, it's all too easy to arrow step to the side and send a Rasengan burst back. I harry him with a few more ranged Rasengan to keep him on the back foot and prevent more ninjutsu, but his chakra still shifts, signifying the use of a seal-less replacement. I instantly lock onto his new position and body flicker over, avoiding a stab from another piece of sharp wood. If that were a regular weapon, then I would not worry about it, but since it's made using wood release, I'll take the utmost caution and not let it land on me. I don't think one can be too paranoid regarding that particular blood limit, so I form a chakra construct of an arm from my back and catch his follow-up attack with it. The large hand covers his arm almost to the elbow. It tightens into a vice before Obito can react, the prosthetic arm being crushed to paste and drawing a muted yell from the rogue shinobi. From there, the fight quickly comes to an end as I use my physicality to the max. Despite his rage, he does try to run away when he realizes he can't keep up with me. Tries and fails as expected. Even the snake, slimy version of Houdini that he used to be, could not escape me back in Kusa, and that was without the aid of Kurama's power. So I catch Obito on every attempt and continue what I do best. I don't believe in going easy on opponents, as one slip-up can DU in, and that's especially true in this encounter. As easy as this seems, Obito still has one Sharingan, meaning one last Izanagi. Everything that he learns in this bout will be used to defeat me in the next, so what I'm doing is focusing on taijutsu with a few ninjutsu thrown in, leaves everything else an unknown. The fact that he will be down both eyes and blind means nothing, so after he falls, mask mostly intact as intended but body broken, I once again use a kunai to pierce his brain through the eye hole he made. This time I go the extra distance of launching a fireball onto the corpse like it will keep him dead. From there I wait, fire crackling beside me while my eyes and senses look for his next reappearance. Waiting a bit more, and then some. I think he's down for good this time. Kakashi comments, moving over to observe the pyre. Guy and Lee follow on full alert while Niji and company remain where they were. The other times he returned within seconds. HN. I suppose by other times he means the failed Kamui and the first decapitation. Could Obito have actually given up and not used Izanagi? Maybe. Though highly unlikely. There was something else at hand here. Your thoroughness is commendable, Naruto, but perhaps we should continue with our official mission. Guy suggests, each second we waste is one which Itachi Uchiha can use to escape our pursuit. You're not wrong. The chakra cloak around me disperses, same with the one around Kakashi. We don't need those right now. Assuming his stalling wasn't completely effective, getting back on the track should lead us to Itachi eventually. Him, Kisame, and perhaps Tobi's partner. I nod at Kakashi. No point staying here. With that we turn to regroup with the rest of the squad, where I thank the Toad Elders for their help and promise to visit sometime. Before the clearing leaves our sight I make the plus symbol and mold chakra, shrugging to the questioning looks. If he does return, then I want some forewarning. That assuages their curiosity, and we continue in silence. Goes, Sasuke POV. Nothing seems to be working. A last-ditch fire technique? Bounced off the orange avatar. The remainder of his kunai equipped with explosive tags? Same result. One final attack with his sword? His blade ricocheted into the distance while he flew back and almost crashed into a piece of wall, miraculously still upright. No. Sasuke breathes, desperately standing up and backing away. No, no, no. Stay back. Itachi pays his pleas no attention. As horrible as Sasuke feels, his older brother looks worse. Staggering forward with a limp while blood runs down his chin as he coughs wetly. Even the arm stretching out towards him is covered in severe burns and bloody at the fingers. Despite it all, Sasuke's the one retreating until his back meets the wall. He's the one fearfully pleading as death comes ever nearer. Could it really end like this? Was this all his ambitions would lead to? Death at the hands of the monster who'd mercilessly slaughtered his family? Would he leave this world the same way his mom and dad did? As Itachi slowly comes closer to touching him, Sasuke accepts the truth. Yes, this was the end. Unbidden, memories and thoughts forcibly suppressed flash before his eyes. He sees his younger self, fresh off the loss of his clan and foolishly deciding the lone path of vengeance would be his. Pushing away all and any attempts at friendship because stuff like that would only make him weak. But then his teammates, Naruto, they got through to him, just barely. It didn't stop him from betraying them for a better chance to kill Itachi. How assured of himself he'd been. How easily he lied to himself that he made the right choice to leave them and be alone. That they were a weakness, and now here he is. About to die. All alone. The realization makes his shoulders slump further in defeat. What a failure. Itachi's avatar breaks down, allowing him to touch two fingers to Sasuke's forehead. Wide, fearful eyes meet hazy red and his world shifts. A genjutsu, one which he's in no state to break out of. He doesn't know exactly where the following visions take place, but he recognizes the architecture of Konoha. The first set consists of meetings in a dimly lit room. Various adults, young and old, bearing Uchiha were sitting around and discussing changes in the village. Discontent and mistrust regarding the village proper, plans to address the issue, plans of a coup. His mind can barely comprehend what he is seeing before the images change. Now they consist of the third Hokage and another elder. They learn of the clan's planned revolt, and use young Itachi, who seeks peaceful resolution, as a double agent. Time advances and bloodshed becomes inevitable. The other elder approaches Itachi with an order: kill every Uchiha and be branded a hero. Itachi opposes, chooses to wipe out the clan except for his little brother, and live life as a rogue instead. Threatening to expose village secrets, for his safety. The influx of images stop there thankfully, but Sasuke feels his world breaking down. All he thought he knew is no longer true. Or maybe this is one last lie at his expense? Yes, that makes more sense. The Uchiha, it wasn't likely that they would plot to overthrow the third, was it? It hadn't been his focus, but the village treated his clan right, didn't they? They were respected by everyone, shinobi and civilian alike. They were a welcome addition to the village. In fact, he was treated like royalty in many of the places he deemed to visit. Uchiha-sama is what they called, always paying respect to his slain family. Sometimes they would even... Oh. Realization hit. His clearest memories of village interactions were after that night. As the pitiful survivor of a massacre. So what were they like before then? Try as he might, he can't properly recall. He does remember they were somewhat distanced from the village proper, however. Likely of their own choice, as most Uchiha were reserved individuals. Probably wanted to be alone rather than some slight from the village. Yes, as co-founders of the village, the Uchiha deserved the right to some privacy. Their sweat, blood, and tears given for the leaf called for no less. Sasuke can't ignore the quiet voice questioning why no Uchiha ever took the position of Hokage. Surely their sacrifices warranted that. Instead, a line of Senju and their allies held a monopoly on the hat. Was that purposeful? The more his mind wanders, the more he can see why some might suspect foul play against the clan. Perhaps the arguments he just witnessed weren't completely baseless, but were they enough to inspire a revolt? To have the Uchiha turn on the village their ancestors helped found? Was it possible? The broken body of Naruto lying in the valley comes to him suddenly. He'd done that, hadn't he? almost killed a pseudo-friend while abandoning the same village he couldn't believe his clan would turn against. In that light, was it really so impossible? No. No, it wasn't. He could see it now. As if waiting for that cue, the setting changes and Itachi appears before him. Together they stand in a world under a red sky. Neither shoulder told their battle had taken on them, but that's not to say both are unscathed. Sasuke didn't know just how to feel at the moment, while Itachi looks unbelievably saddened. Is it true? He did not appreciate how weak and imploring his voice sounds, but he had to know. Had to hear Itachi's take on what was currently turning his world upside down. It's the truth, little brother. Itachi sighs. Our clan wanted a revolution. It wasn't meant to be. Something had to be done and there were no other options before me to maintain the peace. A battle between the village and the clan would have destabilized everything, put us at risk of extermination should the other hidden villages take advantage. It was the only way. Looking into his eyes, Sasuke could find no hints of deception. Only tiredness and an expression that he only used to see back when they were young. It had hurt, honestly. Why? He asks, why did it have to be you? Why didn't you take the first option? What he really wants to ask is why didn't Itachi kill him and live a hero? But he can't quite put it in words. His brother smiles sadly. Because I was their best option. Rather than risk the news behind our clan's treachery reaching the village or beyond, I could operate in silence. Limit the number of people aware. And it had to be me because that was the only way to keep you safe. Itachi blinks as the illusionary world shudders, cracks starting to form. My time is not much longer, so let me just say this, please. I did what I did because you were my precious little brother. I could not kill you if I tried, and I couldn't let whoever they chose in my stead kill you either. How is he supposed to react to such news? My intention was always to protect you, but in the end, I went too far. I didn't want to darken your perception of our clan, of our father, so I became the villain. One you could hold responsible and slay for retribution. In an attempt to push you to become strong and to one day free me from the burden I placed upon myself, I tortured you, Sasuke. There is no other way to describe the horrors I made you witness. The memories of that night flit across his mind, yet at the same time, it did push me, it motivated me to become stronger. Sasuke doesn't know why, or maybe he does, but the sudden revelation makes it hard to watch his brother place even more blame on himself. Not when he went through something even worse. Perhaps it did, Itachi exhales, yet it also forced you to walk a path that I hadn't wished for you. All I wanted was for you to be safe and to have the strength to defend what was yours. Happiness, love, and acceptance. I wanted all that for you. And I hope you'll find it someday. You deserve it. He closes the distance then, and Sasuke allows it, too numb to do anything as Itachi leans his forehead against his in a brotherly embrace. My time is up, Sasuke. Know that although you won't see me, I'll always be with you. Right here. He taps the spot over Sasuke's heart. I'll always love you, no matter what. Don't you ever blame yourself for this. I wanted to end things on my terms and I have, so don't burden yourself further. I want you to live on, little brother, live the life I was never able to give you. I love you. And with that, the illusion shatters. It comes to a seemingly abrupt end, leaving them on an overcast battlefield littered with debris and raging black flames. But Sasuke's attention is on the smiling face of his brother, expression locked even as the life leaves his eyes. After the corpse slumps and falls to the side, Sasuke's body finally gives up and he likewise collapses. Mind and emotions in turmoil. Itachi lies at his feet dead, but he feels no satisfaction from the sight. How could he, knowing what he does now? His brother took on the burden of killing their entire clan for the sake of Konoha, and more specifically him. His brother loved him enough to leave the village and become a rogue ninja. In the face of such realizations, Sasuke feels nothing but remorse. The understanding that during their battle Itachi had never seriously injured him made it worse. Itachi? His voice is weak. If only he'd known earlier. Why hadn't anyone told him? Itachi, don't leave me too. Why did it have to end this way? Please. I'm sorry. Exhaustion creeps in then, and his mind succumbs like his body did moments earlier. Sasuke Uchiha, now the very last of his clan, passes out. Goes. Clone POV. After sending Pandora's box to Prime, Alpha and the other clones sat around for a bit waiting. During that time they were able to see the snake's huge, Hydra-like body break out of the curse mark and do battle with Itachi's Susanoo. Alpha knew he likely wasn't the only one who'd wondered where that form was when the real snake faced Prime just a couple months ago. Not that it would have saved him. In the end, Itachi won, so they got to watch the second to last Horcrux be destroyed. That enjoyable scene essentially marked the conclusion of the battle between brothers, with Itachi's signature quickly disappearing and Sasuke's dimming after a surge in negative emotions. The clones move in as one, taking special care not to disturb anything as they navigate through Ground Zero and finally reach the two who'd caused so much damage. It's clear Itachi is very much dead while Sasuke sits against a wall only an arm's length away, out cold. It's what Alpha expected to see, but the sight is somewhat unpleasant all the same. For what it's worth, I'm sorry it had to happen this way. He sighs. Sasuke may have been a jerk to Naruto, on top of likely killing him, but the kid did just lose a brother who was also his sole living family member. Alpha couldn't miss the tears on the younger brother's face, and combining that with the faint shift in chakra he'd felt earlier. Well, it's safe to say Sasuke was not having a good time before falling unconscious. During one of Prime's more melancholy moments, he'd entertained the idea that people in this world were more attuned with their feelings. That they felt emotions more vividly than he was accustomed to. He'd attributed that to a combination of having chakra, a physical and spiritual energy, and the way of life in the elemental nations, an example more so for shinobi than civilians, but one had to really cherish their loved ones while they lived because death was an ever-present factor. The difference in average life expectancy here and back where Prime first lived proved that point well. Of course, love wasn't the only magnified emotion present in this world, but it was what Prime, and therefore Alpha and all the other clones, used to their advantage this day. They'd counted on the love Itachi held for Sasuke to make sure no real damage befell the younger Uchiha, while also relying on Sasuke's previous love for Itachi to make an appearance, and then result in grief strong enough for a Manjikyu activation. It was honestly similar to something Black Zetsu would do. Sure, excuses could be given like pointing to this event happening in the original storyline, or even saying that this is what Itachi wanted, didn't change the fact that they're excuses. Getting Sasuke's Sharingan benefited them, so they pushed events to turn out the way they did. No need to sugarcoat anything. We'll make sure it was worth it in the end, and try to lend a hand in the aftermath. Alpha promises before gesturing Bravo and Charlie forward. You know what to do. The clones move forward, with Charlie opening the second scroll they'd prepared ahead of time. They lay the supplies between the patients, and clean their hands before getting to work. It doesn't take long to prepare the two for an impromptu operation, simply having to flip Itachi onto his back and position Sasuke in the same fashion, and then applying antiseptic to the target sites and a local anesthetic to the younger brother. It's their first time doing this on a human, so they start with Itachi. The extraction process goes pretty well, in Alpha's amateur opinion. He steps up to the body once the eyes are out, and the clones focus on Sasuke with their newfound expertise. His gaze roves up and down, weighing the possibilities. Should be something that's always near him. Hard for an opponent to separate. Maybe of certain importance. Lightning is faintly reflected off the scratched forehead protector. The old thing slips off with a tug, and ignoring how unhygienic it is, Alpha holds the metal slab between both hands and channels a small amount of chakra into it. Oh, looking at the inner side of the plate, he sees it. A seal. A rather simple-looking one for storage. Focusing chakra directly onto it this time results in a small puff of smoke and a nondescript scroll which he quickly unrolls to analyze. There's another more complicated seal there, but it can't stump someone who had to study the science behind storage seals in order to create a new one. Nope, he figures out how to open this one too. Just need to apply blood to 2 specific areas. Only, after getting 2 drops from Itachi and applying them, nothing happens. He wordlessly looks between the scroll and Itachi until something hits him. Hey, I need one of you to bring me a drop of Sasuke's blood. Bravo ends up being the one to answer the odd summon. Okay, drop it onto that matrix there while I do the same on this one. On my count. 3, 2, 1. The smoke is thicker this time, but Alpha doesn't mind. Means they did something right. Very right. Before their eyes lay 2 objects. The first is a plain-looking gourd made of clay. Only about 45 centimeters from head to base, the gourd has no stopper, but looking down into it reveals a complete darkness. Even the light around them makes no difference in seeing what's inside it. Somewhat foreboding. The other object is even harder to explain, a flat piece of something gray with no discernible edges. It seems to blur, making it hard to tell just what shape it is. It's a good thing Alpha had names and functions to assign to these objects, or he would be completely lost at the moment. The first is the sword of Totsuka. A jar filled with a liquid that gains the form of a blade when released and can seal whatever target is pierced by it. They just saw it used on the snake. The second is called the Yata mirror, and should be able to negate any attack, Although both are classified as ethereal weapons and can't be used in their current state, the mirror is said to have no set form or property, which explains why some flat gray thing is the best explanation for it right then. Alpha reaches out to touch the mirror, very hesitantly, and makes contact with the center. Immediately he feels a pull on his chakra before it stops. He gets the feeling of being weighed and found wanting for some reason. Okay. I'm going to assume these things bind to an owner after absorbing some of their chakra. After that, the owner can summon them from wherever they leave them, he theorizes, and I'm guessing that chakra has to come from a living being. Not a clone? Bravo asks. Likely thinking Alpha had just experienced an attempt to absorb chakra from the mirror. Probably, it definitely didn't bind to me. He shrugs before putting the mythical weapons back into the scroll, without touching them. We'll store this in ours. Make sure you get a sample of Itachi's blood and another of Sasuke's. I'm going to set up the smoke screen. For the sake of secrecy, certain measures had to be taken to cover their presence. The clones would do their part, while the rest would be left to Prime. Alpha just hopes the dead can't watch the living world wherever they were. Some things simply can't be explained. Goes. Karen POV. People from the Hidden Mist are really weird. She's only really met 2 Kuririn, but that seems to be a constant. On one hand is Suigetsu of the Hozuki clan. The idiot really needs to learn to read the atmosphere, as she can vividly remember all the times he's gotten between Sasuke-kun and her. The boy was probably jealous. Shark teeth and everything. The second person is Kisame Hashigaki, who she's heard about, and is just seeing in person. A tall, muscular freak of nature with huge chakra reserves. That skin tone couldn't possibly be real, could it? The two make quite the sight, killing time sparring as everyone waits for Sasuke-kun to finish up with his fight against Itachi. They repeatedly clash large butcher knife against oddly alive shark sword, also large in size, in a bout of kenjutsu. On the surface level it looks like no one takes any real damage, but she feels the difference in Suigetsu's chakra pool after taking a hit in his water form. Kisame's sword can absorb chakra apparently, a fact that adds to her growing worries. Despite herself and the faith she has in her dark-haired crush, Karen doesn't feel comfortable, and that's what pushes her to make jokes about how Kiri shinobi are compensating for something with their oversized swords. It helps her stress less about Sasuke-kun, who'd left her sensing range, and the S-rank Kuririn, who at any time might stop playing around and decide to kill them. Honestly, this was not going how she'd imagined it would go. Probably because the specifics had never seemed important at the time. In her dreams, the younger Uchiha would win and then they'd go celebrate together, just the two of them. Realistically, however, Kisame could pose a huge threat if Sasuke-kun kills his partner. What was the point in fulfilling one of their ambitions only to be killed afterwards by a living sword? That would certainly not be the happy ending she wanted. She startles as the senses she's pushing as far as possible pick up something. Multiple signatures, one very familiar. She could never forget the chakra she'd felt that day. If he's really Sasuke-kun's old teammate, then that makes the others with him Leaf Ninja. It's obvious who they're here for. Thinking quickly, she makes a possibly rash decision. Suigetsu, what? He barks back angrily, narrowly avoiding another hit from the chakra-absorbing sword. Get over here! After over an hour, she'd think their mock fight would have lost any entertainment value. Kuririn, honestly, ugh. The purple-eyed teen hops back from Kisame with a huff. You'd better have a go. What is it, Karen? Yugo interrupts him. Don't you have birds looking out? We've got company. 7-leaf Nin and what feels like a summon animal. One of them could possibly be connected to Orochimaru-sama's death. As she speaks, she moves the huddle away from the Akatsuki member. Differentiating themselves from that organization is the first part of her plan to not be killed by the Leaf Squadron. The huge, overpowering chakra comes closer. She doesn't have much time. We should surrender to them. What? The expected person immediately blurts out. Why? If they're here for Sasuke, then we should fight to hold them off. Prevent them from interfering with his battle. Don't use that as an excuse. She retorts, knowing the idiot just doesn't like the idea of surrendering to anyone. I know for a fact you're not willing to die for Sasuke-kun's goal. Suigetsu opens his mouth, and then closes it after some thought. Exactly. Odds are that their battle is over already and Fishface just hasn't gotten the message yet, so fighting the Leaf would be pointless. If we cooperate, they might not kill us. Do you hear yourself? You don't know for sure if giving up would save our lives, and even then, we would end up as prisoners. Do you know what their torture and interrogation division does to prisoners from other villagers? Do you? She admits that he is raising some good points. Ibiki Marino was quite infamous for his work, and as underlings to Orochimaru-sama, they'd possibly be looking at an extended stay in his care. Yet at the same time, Sasuke-kun might not have outright said it, but this teammate of his had gotten one over him recently, so it wouldn't be impossible for it to happen again. Especially if they outnumber her crush, who is likely exhausted by now. That means the soon-to-be last Uchiha could end up in Konoha again, where he would be out of her reach indefinitely. Just her response dies off. She'd been paying close attention to the approaching group, so she noticed when they'd sharply turned in their direction, and now she also senses how the group splits up less than a kilometer away. Four continue towards them while three in the summon branch off in an angle that will likely take them towards Sasuke-kun. Notably, he isn't part of the four humans. Look, I was conscious when that guy raided the base I was kept in. I know he's powerful. Suigetsu relents in her silence. But I think you're forgetting something. He nods over to Kisame, who's just standing there grinning. Kisame-senpai is currently their enemy too and crazy strong. We could join forces against the Leaf. We could retreat instead. Let Kisame fight them? Yugo starts to offer when a bird lands in his hair and chirps. He blinks and turns, or not. The four-leaf nin emerge from the forest and stop, forming a triangle consisting of the three parties. The newcomers look like the typical four-man group led by a man in a garish green outfit with three younger subordinates. It's the man who Kisame narrows his eyes at. I remember you, Kisame laughs, bandages falling off his sword revealing spiky scales and a mouth. The green beast. Looks like we can have a proper rematch. Do I know you? The man asks in confusion. Karen doesn't get to comfortably observe them as the three teens turn to her, and the others. A Hyuga, another green outfit, and a girl with her hair in twin buns. To her side Suigetsu raises his cleaver sword and attacks, likely seeing victory against these three. Yugo transforms and likewise charges the boy in green, and that's how she found herself facing the Leaf Kunoichi unfurling a large scroll. I surrender? Goes. Sakura POV. The rain was the first sign. They ran into it a few minutes after Team Guy split off from them with Niji having identified Kisame Hashigaki. Itachi wasn't with him, a trio of strangers there instead, so the teams had separated after making the assumption that the Uchiha would be further down. They really couldn't afford another delay, so they backtracked and pushed on before running into something else. If the downpour hadn't been ominous enough, the black flames certainly were. They covered a great expanse of land and the falling rain seemed to do nothing to it. She didn't have to be told this fire wasn't normal. So two things. First, we're on the right track. Only person I've seen create fire like this was Itachi. Naruto reports as they stand a safe distance from the conflagration. It will likely continue to burn for days. Jiraiya-sama recounted something along those lines when he first encountered the Akatsuki duo. Her sensei muses, the rain and fire doesn't help, but I can confirm this Itachi scent is present here, along with another that feels kind of familiar. Pakken adds in, familiar? Kakashi-sensei asks to the dog version of a shrug. Yeah. Like I said, the environment isn't helping. What's the second thing? She asks, beating the others to the question. I sense someone in the center of all this. Without my sage mode, all I can tell is that they're not moving. Oh. That's certainly an issue. Maybe Niji should have come with them. At least then they could have potentially gotten a visual of the unknown person and plan accordingly. Now they had to risk the flames to confirm who was among them. Do we have anything to deal with the fire? Your wind jutsu maybe? I have something. It's not a jutsu, however. Jiraiya taught me the fire suppression seal a while back. The blonde nods. Out of his left arm guard comes a scroll which reveals a complex seal when unfurled. Sakura knows he only has so many storage seals on those things, so odds are he prepared that scroll just for this mission. She could respect proactivity like that. He creates a clone who takes the scroll and moves over to the flames. Her eyebrow rises when the flames nearest to the scroll warp and are slowly absorbed. It takes a while before a safe path is available, and after a round of glances, they venture forward. The only word to describe what she sees then is devastation. There had obviously been a structure of some sort, but all that remains is rubble. Debris, scattered pieces of metal, and bits of black flames litter the area. As she makes her way inwards following Naruto, she ponders just what could have happened here. It's all too clear that a battle took place, but who did Itachi face? Did Itachi win, or is the signature there closing in on the victor? The universe reveals the answer in a way she'd rather it hadn't. Sasuke? Indeed, lying near what had once been a wall is her old teammate. Even after almost 3 years, the distance between them, and a change of outfits, she still recognizes him. Just like she recognizes that the shape a short distance from him is a human body with its upper body being consumed by black flames, mere feet from his comatose form. She doesn't remember when her legs start moving. All she knows is that she's closing the distance when Naruto appears beside Sasuke and touches him. The same red shroud he'd covered Kakashi-sensei in while fighting Tobi lights up around the Uchiha. It envelopes him fully when she finally lands beside them. I don't see any serious external damage, but this should help, he explains while glancing at the corpse to the side. A clone forms and disperses. Can we move him? She doesn't respond right away, too busy running a diagnostic technique on the thankfully living Sasuke. The chakra shroud creates a bit of interference, but she doesn't notice anything that would create any complications. In fact, she can feel the shroud healing their teammate and replenishing his chakra. We can now. She decides, and they do so, not very far but enough so the fire doesn't pose an immediate threat. His head is positioned lying in her lap. Does he need that for much longer? Naruto asks. She assumes he means the shroud. No. Either exhaustion was the worst of the damage, or your chakra transfer works fast. Either way he'll be fine. Good. The shroud gradually fades, and the blonde lays a hand on Sasuke's chest through the open collar. When he moves his hand, a seal is visible for a second, to restrict his chakra. It would also be best if he regains consciousness back in the village. She heeds the politely worded command and taps an area on her patient's neck. Naruto nods and moves to join Kakashi-sensei and the fire-suppressing clone near the corpse, leaving her alone with her childhood crush. That's Kakashi's other student, right? Mostly alone. She mindlessly answers Pakin, it's Sasuke-kun. The whisper is barely audible, as if anything too loud might disturb his slumber. Lack of consciousness really seems to soften his features. Sakura looks up, noticing the other members of Team Kakashi approaching. Their grim expressions warn her of bad news incoming. Mission's over. Prepare to provide support to Team Guy. It takes her only a second to understand what her sensei means by that. Itachi was their priority, not Sasuke. Just because they have the younger Uchiha now, that doesn't mean they would stop pursuing the eldest. Not unless something drastic happened. Something like Itachi Uchiha being killed before they arrived would count as that something drastic. They'd failed the primary objective. Goes. Kurama POV. When you said delayed Izanagi, I did not expect it to be so delayed. The millennia-old fox grumbles. This is frustrating. True. But you have to admit, the only way Madara could have fooled Hashirama is if he were truly dead for however long it took the first to walk away from his friend's corpse. HN. Absolutely bored, Kurama starts pacing on a branch overlooking the pile of ashes that was once an Uchiha. The physical movement is enough to take his mind off the impatience for a while. Even after months of experiencing it, this style of the shadow clone technique holds a unique fascination to him. To be in the form of a bipedal creature while also holding dominance over the body's actions, almost to the point of the body being his. It's not obviously. He can faintly feel his real form inside the real Naruto, yet by merging his consciousness with that of a complaint clone's he can come as close as possible to living like a human. Normally he would never desire such a thing, but this state comes with many benefits. The semblance of freedom after being passed through 3 generations of containers and the ability to lash out against those who sought to use him for their own purpose. To extract vengeance on those cursed Uchihas. The frailty of human flesh took the first wretch from him, but the pretender would be his soon enough. In a sense, this delay is a good thing because otherwise, Naruto would have slain the Uchiha once and for all. Kurama would have witnessed it close up, but it wouldn't have provided the same satisfaction doing the act himself might. So yes, he should be content. And he was. Half an hour ago. At this point the Uchiha was just being a plain nuisance. It's as he contemplates checking in on the original that he feels it. The sudden negative emotions along with the chakra signature that hadn't been there previously. Kurama ceases all movement, even tries to further suppress his presence in case the Uchiha is a capable censor. From down below the sound of agitated breathing can be heard. The pretender doesn't scream or vent his burning anger in any way aside from ripping off his mask and throwing it to the ground. Kurama assumes the Uchiha is aware enough to realize the danger he's in and doesn't want to draw any attention. Smart of him, really. The milky white orbs in place of red Sharingans paint a picture of vulnerability. Any altercation would come with an added element of danger. The target makes his way over to a tree and touches it. A pulse of chakra originates from that point. Kurama doesn't know what the purpose behind that action is, but he makes up his mind. Naruto easily overwhelmed the Uchiha, so although he lacks the natural energy to enter Sage mode now, the blindness of his opponent should balance it out. He drops down to the forest floor, meters away from the second to last living descendant of Indra who spins to face him. Far too late. A wet squelching sound echoes around the partially destroyed forest. Whack! Blood erupts from his mouth, the result of Kurama pulverizing his chest cavity on the way to his heart. The fox in human form withdraws and allows the Uchiha to slowly collapse, leaking vital fluid into the grassy earth. For years, Kurama had been looking forward to this. A decade spent alone in the seal while the other half of his being languished in the stomach. The Shinigami, rage and hatred had been his only emotions regarding this specific human. Finding out he was not actually the first Uchiha who used him and left him to be sealed by the wood user's wife did not dampen the frustration. Indeed, having it happen a second time was altogether worse. But now, standing above the dying Sharingan wielder, the personal satisfaction is there, and yet, it doesn't quite feel how he imagined it. Naruto's foreknowledge, no doubt, adding another dimension to what would have been a moment of self-gratification. It doesn't invalidate his emotions on the matter, just makes this act deeper, meaningful for more than just him and his reasons. I know you considered yourself right. That your actions were justified. A hero in your own retelling. He doesn't know if the Uchiha hears him, doesn't care either. He just has to get the words off his chest. But the truth is, Uchiha, similar to how I was a tool for your goals, you were a tool for another. A means to a ruinous end, so this is for more than just me. His blood-covered hand clenches into a fist. I get retribution today. The many innocents you've killed get theirs. The ones you would go on to kill get theirs. I will not apologize, spawn of Indra. Nor can I genuinely offer condolences. Yet all the same, when you cross into the other, I hope you find what you were after. Obito Uchiha. Sometime later, his conscience returns to his body. Kurama? Naruto asks, likely feeling the shift. It's done, is his simple response. The memories from the shadow clone would have returned to his partner already, so no details are needed. The question is more to test his state of mind than anything. I see. That's good then, and for the moment, that's that.